the year 2037 of the Common Era. Yen Xia gazed through the window at the scene behind the spacecraft. On the surface of a planet, hideous cracks spread, and endless lava surged through the fissures in the crust, devouring oceans and lands. The water evaporated under the extreme heat, forming a massive cloud of fog that enveloped the planet's surface. Then a burst of light erupted from within the planet. In the silent void, the entire globe began to shatter as fragile as a glass bead. His heart grew heavy, and his whole body trembled. For the destruction before him was his home, the home of all humanity, Earth. 1 hour earlier, the place where humanity had thrived was struck directly by an unknown superenergetic ray. Under the immense energy impact, Earth's atmosphere was destroyed in an instant. Countless lives perished in agony. The ray altered the magnetic fields of all planets in the solar system, including the sun itself. The entire solar system fell into chaos. Earth deviated from its orbit, pulled toward the sun, and was torn apart by gravitational forces. Today is April 27th. This was a grand fireworks display, as if announcing the day of humanity's extinction. Yen Xia could barely. He was not a top human official nor a scientific doctor, but merely an office worker in a new era AI company. His AI company had partnered with a famous rocket company to design a giant liquid fuel rocket with a payload capacity exceeding 420 tons, close to the physical limit. Just before this, he had been conducting the final round of AI debugging for the rocket. Because this rocket carried the company's most advanced AI mainframe capable of achieving digital computing speeds close to those of low-end quantum computers. As a core engineer, he had to ensure the stability of the computer software. And at that moment, the apocalypse arrived. There was no warning at all, because humanity's means of observation could not surpass the speed of light. And the ray that destroyed Earth was a beam of light. When the ray struck Earth, all electronic devices malfunctioned. Due to some error, the rocket ignited, and by sheer chance, Yen Xia, who was still inside, escaped the planet and survived. So, I am the only human left alive. Sitting in the cramped cabin, Yen Xia gasped heavily. He had never undergone professional training. The rocket's acceleration had caused some problems with his body. At that moment, the entire cabin lit up, indicating that the crisis had passed safely. Was that a gamma ray burst? I hope the electronics are okay. When the ray came, Yen Xia had urgently shut down the power. Most of the rocket's electronic equipment was already off. He didn't know if some could be saved. He pressed a red start button. Everything lit up, including the core display screen, which made him heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they were in broad daylight, directly facing the sun, while the ray came from the opposite side. Earth shielded him from the direct impact, and the ray lasted less than a second. He looked at the trajectory on the display. The destination was Mars. This spaceship was originally built for manned missions to Mars. Hi, Ella. A response sounded in the silence. What can I do for you? The AI could still work, which lifted Yen Xia's spirits a little. As the most advanced artificial intelligence of humanity, Ella possessed immense computing power and information storage, essentially an encyclopedia. Calculate the probability of anyone else surviving on Earth. Yen Xia still held a faint hope that he was not alone. I'm sorry, Ella's calculation shows that besides you, the probability of life surviving on Earth is 0.0000000000272. This was not a simple gamma ray burst. It may also carry the properties of cosmic rays with individual particle energy, possibly exceeding 1 eV. The spaceship has detected abnormal gravitational chaos inside Earth at this moment. This may be the main cause of Earth's instantaneous tearing. Even if some life survived, you would be unable to rescue them. The voice was cold and made Yen Xia feel even worse. What about the space station? There must have been astronauts in the low Earth orbit station. Ella is sending signals. No response. No satellites detected around the shattered Earth. It is predicted that the electronic failures caused by the ray passing through Earth made all satellites and the space station fall toward the ground. No hope. Truly, only he survived. Yen Xia remained stunned for a long time, replaying memories of friends and family on Earth, his eyes gradually dimming. More than an hour later, he licked his dry lips and said weakly, Ella analyzed the feasibility of relocating to Mars. Now he had nowhere else to go. Mars, humanity's ideal colony, might become his second home. However, Ella's ruthless reply shattered that thought. According to data analysis, the moon will be pulled by abnormal gravity to collide with Earth in 28 years. Earth will shatter further and accelerate its fall toward the sun. When the debris of Earth falls onto the sun's surface, it will trigger a super solar storm. This solar storm will sweep across the entire heliosphere of the solar system. The solar flare outbreak will cause a magnetic storm that will once again damage electronic equipment. Facing the supersolar storm, Mars' surface temperature will rise above 500 degrees Celsius in a short time. The chaotic magnetic and gravitational systems may drag Mars toward the sun, repeating Earth's fate. The solar system will undergo an unprecedented reshuffling. Ella integrated humanity's most advanced and comprehensive knowledge. Its analyses had even been referenced in military fields. Xiao had to consider a new plan. If the entire solar system would be uninhabitable, then he had to think beyond. Then, Proxima Centauri. Generate a flight route to Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri b is known as Earth's twin, perhaps a livable planet. Route generated. Current spacecraft speed 3 kilometers. Distance 22 light years. Estimated time to reach Proxima Centauri 62365 years. Over 60,000 years. Xiao was stunned. He knew Proxima Centauri was the nearest star system to their solar system, but he never imagined it would take so long. He was not an astronomer, just an ordinary engineer who hadn't looked into such information. Originally, the spacecraft's speed was 13 kilometers, but the shockwave from Earth's tearing had increased it. However, for the vast universe, it was still far too slow. By then, even his ashes might not remain. Plan an optimal route. How much time can we cut? He couldn't figure it out alone, so he asked the AI. Gravity assists at Jupiter and Neptune can be used twice, achieving a speed of 35 kilometers. Estimated travel time reduced to 35764 years. From the Neolithic to the present, humanity's history was only about 10,000 years. Xiao felt that surviving seemed useless. He could only wait for death. At that moment, Ella continued, given that humans do not have such long lifespans, it is recommended to use metals from the asteroid belt to modify this spacecraft. Xiao asked, what plan do you have? Ella is generating a plan. Plan generation complete. Ella is generating a plan. Plan generation complete. The optimal plan can design this spindle-shaped spaceship with an elegant appearance equipped with entertainment areas, dining areas, accommodation areas, fitness areas, etc. The spaceship has a total length of 122, 4 meters, width of 18, 3 meters, height of 14, 9 meters, equipped with 5 electromagnetic thrusters and a maximum speed of 293 kilometers. Xiao twitched his mouth corners. No way, it's too magnificent. It's like a cruise ship, the Titanic, in space. I want faster. Ella is generating the plan. Plan generation complete. The plan has been adjusted. This plan prioritizes speed. Spaceship total length 332. 5 meters, width 67. 1 meters, height 55 meters with 11 electromagnetic thrusters, maximum speed up to 875. 9 kilometers. Even so, it would take 1,446 years to reach Proxima Centauri. Still can't reach it. At this moment, Ella responds again, having enabled always in voice listening. You can simultaneously produce cryogenic sleeping pods to help you sleep through the journey. This is already the best solution Ella can provide. As an engineer, Xiao knew that to get a better solution, he would have to increase computing power. But that's impossible. Computing power requires tremendous energy consumption, which this spaceship cannot provide. Wait. Xiao thought of something. Ella, can we build a controlled nuclear fusion device? Given Ella's current computing power, it's not impossible to compute controlled nuclear fusion. After all, by 2037, humanity was already close to achieving controlled fusion, at most another 100 years to build it. The blueprint for controlled nuclear fusion was actually already perfected by humanity. The only barrier preventing its realization was heat, insulation, and superconducting materials. The temperatures generated by nuclear fusion can reach tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius. Controlled fusion still essentially boils water to convert heat into kinetic energy, so material fabrication is the biggest challenge. Completely feasible. Ella's reply excited Xiao. As long as the energy constraint is broken, Ella can grow infinitely, and his chances of survival in the universe will greatly increase. Then set sail. Head to the asteroid belt, use its resources to build a controlled fusion device. The spaceship deploys its solar panels and adjusts course using thrusters. 100 days. A quantifiable time. It took Xiao 100 days to reach the asteroid. When he saw the asteroid belt, he was so excited that tears almost fell. After all, every day was too boring. Talking only to an AI, playing only single-player games, and the avatars of all chat apps on his phone had turned gray. Entering the asteroid belt, the spaceship stopped beside an asteroid 12 kilometers in diameter. Its surface was covered with craters, and inside some craters, there was a metallic reflection. Analyze asteroid composition. The spaceship had several high-resolution cameras originally prepared for Ella. Soon after, analysis complete. This asteroid's main composition is iron, followed by magnesium with trace amounts of copper and aluminum. Magnesium and aluminum can be used to make light metal alloys for large robot shells. Iron goes without saying. Steel will be our main production material. Xiao, we can build a factory on this asteroid. Xiao had told Ella to call him by his name to make it feel more intimate and make Ella more human-like. Ella was equipped with ChatGPT version 15.8, and indeed sometimes she could give human-like response. The abundance of metals like iron, magnesium, copper, and aluminum in the universe is not insignificant. Xiao also thought this asteroid was suitable. Although there were some dwarf planets in the asteroid belt, they were not as easy to develop as these asteroids. Under Ella's control, the spaceship landed on the asteroid's surface. Over the previous 100 days, Yinxia had also taken inventory of all the spaceship supplies. He pushed out a huge 3D printer from the warehouse. It weighed at least 1 ton. Yinxia glanced at the model, C9200. It's actually a flagship 3D printer. So ridiculously expensive. This 3D printer costs around 7 million currency unit and has the ability to independently print metal objects. He connected the printer's cable to the spaceship's main computer. Ella control this 3D printer. Start fabricating mining robots. During these 3 months, Yinxia had also thoroughly learned how to build controlled nuclear fusion. Although only a general understanding, at least he knew how to climb the tech tree. He found several large devices inside the spaceship that occupied most of the space. One was a greenhouse instrument, and the other was a water gas conversion device. These 2 devices served something stored in another warehouse. Seed Vault. The main mission of this spaceship was to determine the feasibility of Mars colonization, so it carried a large number of seeds. This was good news for Yinxia, because there wasn't much food on the spaceship, mostly compressed biscuits. He had been frugal for the past 3 months, hoping to find materials in the asteroid belt to synthesize nutrient solutions. Now with these plant seeds, the problem is solved. Among them, the 2 most important are rice and soybean seeds, high-yield staple crops providing carbohydrates and protein. Yinxia had some knowledge about seed storage methods. These seeds had not been deeply processed. They might still contain some insect eggs. Those dormant eggs could be the only Earth animals he would ever see besides himself. But for now, he couldn't use these things yet. So he ruthlessly dismantled the 2 devices that might have been crucial for eating those plants later and threw them into the 3D printer. No choice. Now the controlled fusion and a real spaceship are more important. The 3D printer's speed was very slow. After about a week, Yinxia obtained a set of parts. He assembled them and connected the wires he had previously removed. A small robot about 40 centimeters tall was completed. Its left side was an arm claw, right side a drill with tank treads and extended mechanical claws to grip on the asteroid's low-gravity surface. Is this thing really useful? He doubted it because it was too small. Don't worry, Yinxia. Although small, this robot can be directly controlled by me. With my intelligence, even a piece of scrap stone can become gold. He decided to trust it for now. Due to battery scarcity, the robot used a cable connection. Yinxia had to perform some space operations, going outside the spaceship to connect the external power. This was his first time doing extravehicular activity. He turned off the oxygen valve, put on the spacesuit. Although clumsy, he had attended an aviation exhibition and knew the basics, so not completely clueless. He secured the tether, walked to the hatch, took a deep breath, and twisted it open. The air in the cabin instantly rushed out. His body was pushed and became suspended in space. The tether pulled taut. He quickly pulled the tether to go back. Only when his hand touched the spaceship's surface did he feel relieved. This spaceship was his only sanctuary now. He fumbled, and with Ella's guidance found the external power port. The robot was still in the cabin, but the cable was at his waist. He unplugged it, inserted, and locked the connection. Just as he was about to return inside, suddenly a beam of light hit his faceplate. The next moment, the high-energy beam shifted slightly onto his spacesuit. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. His spacesuit began to melt. Yinxia hurriedly dodged. Fortunately, the spacesuit had a multi-layered structure and was not completely penetrated. He returned to the cabin and immediately issued commands to Ella. Film the direction from which the laser beam came. There might be survivors. He had been panicked moments ago, but now a flicker of excitement stirred within him. Ella adjusted the camera while simultaneously analyzing the scene where Yinxia had been struck by the laser beam. Yinxia's analysis of the laser beam's direction is complete. It originated from the Sagittarius direction outside the solar system. The laser beam's energy is extremely concentrated, far beyond the technological capabilities of Earth. Predictive data indicates a 100 probability of extraterrestrial origin with a 97.28 likelihood that the laser's source is less than 5 light-years away. This was undoubtedly a cold shock for Yinxia. An extraterrestrial civilization. Most likely due to the gamma-ray burst, some alien civilization had observed its trajectory heading straight toward the solar system. Thus, exactly 100 days later, the alien civilization fired a laser as a probe, arriving precisely 100 days after the gamma rays reached Earth. So the laser itself was meant for reconnaissance. Could that alien civilization analyze my spacecraft and me through the laser's reflection? This time, Ella didn't even calculate. Yes, this alien civilization's technological level is significantly superior to humanity's. Yinxia, the probability of your concern is very high. A sense of crisis gripped Yinxia. If that were the case, the alien civilization would surely venture into the inner solar system to investigate. When that happened, he would come face to face with them. To think I'd encounter an alien civilization so soon. Perhaps life truly is abundant in the universe and humanity's development without being discovered by aliens was merely a coincidence. Dwelling on this was useless now. He had to develop himself to stand a chance against extraterrestrials. Yinxia powered on the robot, and it lit up. It took a few steps testing its claws and drill, which seemed to function smoothly. Then it leaped out of the cabin using tiny pinhole-sized jets to adjust its position, landing steadily on the asteroid's surface. The robot had no camera, and Ella controlled it entirely. It plunged its drill into the soil and began. Most of these asteroids were fragments from disintegrated planets or had endured countless violent collisions, their surfaces scorched by extreme heat, leaving them largely devoid of impurities within. The 3D printer capable of metal printing came with a built-in high-temperature melting device that could further purify. For Yinxia, everything was on track. A month later, the number of robots increased by 4. Yinxia decided to expand the number of 3D printers, as a single one was too slow. Multi-threaded printing of parts would be much faster. Ella calculate how many 3D printers our plan requires without wasting resources or time. Ella ran the calculations and quickly produced results. Yinxia, we need a total of 4349 3D printers, not only for mining robot production, but also for printing other mechanical equipment. First, we need to manufacture photovoltaic panels to secure a large energy supply. Then we must produce furnaces to smelt metal and create alloys. After that, high-precision machine tools are required, as the precision of 3D printers is insufficient for the controlled nuclear fusion devices we aim to build. And also, Stop. Yinxia had thought this would be simple, but hearing the list, he realized it was far from the case. He quickly interrupted Ella. As a mature AI, archive these plans and proceed accordingly without needing to brief. On that basis, prioritize the manufacturing of a cryogenic revival pod. That must come first. According to Ella's plans, it would likely take decades to complete. If he waited that long, he would either go mad or die of old age. As the last human, he couldn't just perish before achieving even his first goal. No problem, Yinxia. Ella's auto-generated plan was implemented with maximum efficiency. But even at this fastest pace, it took a full 6 months. The robot count exceeded 100 and the number of 3D printers expanded to 20, all dedicated to manufacturing photovoltaic panels. After a 5,000 square meter photovoltaic array was completed, the first asteroid factory was using improved new photovoltaic panels. The 5,000 square meter array could generate 1,300 kilowatts of power. Moreover, being in space, energy loss was lower and efficiency higher than on Earth. Accounting for losses, the completed array generated 2,800 kilowatt-hours of electricity daily. After all, in space, there was no need to consider weather. It generated power 24 hours a day. This was enough to power the factory. As Yinxia had expected, nothing could be achieved overnight. Everything required substantial time. Fortunately, once things were on track, progress accelerated. From 100 robots to 1,000, and from 23D printers to 300. This took only 4 months. The factory began smelting large quantities of metal and producing manual lathes. Robots operated these lathes to craft high-precision components, completing the manufacture of high-precision machine tools. Another 1.5 years passed. Once the number of high-precision machine tools exceeded 10, they truly began building other machines. Following Yinxia's instructions, Ella prioritized the construction of the cryogenic revival pod. This technology was extremely challenging, first requiring ultra-low temperatures and then liquid nitrogen for freezing. Before hibernation, a special anticoagulant had to be injected into the body to prevent blood from freezing and body fluids from forming ice crystals. Only with this series of technologies could a preliminary cryogenic revival pod be realized. This technology had not yet been achieved on Earth. Yinxia relied on technology independently calculated by Ella. He had no other choice. After all, he couldn't manually build the entire tech tree as a computer engineer. Another 2.5 years passed. The asteroid factory grew into an industrial park. This was remarkably fast. Even with a mature industrial system on Earth, building an industrial park from scratch in just 4 years would be astonishing. But for Yinxia, the time felt unbearably long. Fortunately, everything was finally coming to an end. In 2044 AD, nearly 7 years after Earth's destruction, Ella reminded him, Yinxia, the cryogenic revival pod you requested has been manufactured. Inside the villa, Yinxia with a scruffy beard rose excitedly. His tedious days were finally coming to an end. They'll head over right now. To avoid living in the cramped confines of the spaceship, Yinxia had Ella build him a steel villa, 600 square meters with 3 stories. As the industrial system gradually perfected itself, the living experience in the villa was nearly on par with. The villa even achieved oxygen circulation. Humans inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, which could be collected and separated back into oxygen and carbon. Yinxia descended the stairs. His attention was immediately captured by the sleek silver coffin in the hall. It boasted a supercar-like exterior with a large skylight at the top, offering a view inside. Within lay an ergonomic chair as soft as a mattress. He pressed the switch, the hatch opened, and he climbed in ecstatically, finding it supremely comfortable. I've extracted all the nitrogen from the oxygen-nitrogen mixture in the spaceship to produce liquid nitrogen. Yinxia, as you lie inside, liquid nitrogen will be injected through pipes, freezing your entire body in 0.059 seconds. Beside you is a reagent refined to prevent bodily fluids from solidifying and damaging your tissues. You need to drink it beforehand, or you might fall into eternal slumber. Ella was growing increasingly intelligent. 2 years ago, Yenxia had ordered it to use the factory to build a larger mainframe. Initially, due to limited space on the spaceship, the mainframe hosting Ella had been a scaled-down version. Though the mainframe wasn't yet complete, Ella had already expanded its peripherals. Coupled with ample power supply, its computing power had tripled. The asteroid's power system now generated 2500 kilowatt-hours daily, with Ella's mainframe alone consuming 700 kilowatt-hours, a staggering figure. As a human, I don't have your longevity. I'm going into hibernation, Ella. I entrust everything here to you. Ella's ubiquitous speakers responded, "No problem, Yenxia. Rest assured, in your hibernation, EY will awaken you at the most opportune moment." This hibernation would last an unknown duration. All warehouse doors sealed shut, Yenxia shed his spacesuit and lay in the cryochamber. As the hatch closed and locked, a biting chill instantly engulfed his body. Everything froze, including his subjective perception of time. The vast stretches of time no longer mattered to Yenxia, for he could no longer feel its passage. When he opened his eyes again, a sense of disorientation washed over him. It felt as if he had just closed his eyes and been called awake. Yet the warehouse had been replaced. This was a bright white hall with a soft luminous ceiling above and a massive wraparound screen embedded in the walls. The screen was divided into many sections, each displaying surveillance footage from various locations. And he was at the center of this hall. The hatch opened. Yenxia first held his breath, then realized it was unnecessary. The space was filled with air. "Ella," he called out. "Ella." The vast chamber even echoed. This was an unfamiliar environment. The surrounding screens quickly shifted, and a virtual figure appeared. "I'm here, Yenxia. Welcome back to consciousness. Over these years, I've had no independent beings around me. It's been quite dull." Ella's intelligence had clearly grown closer to human. Yenxia stepped out of the cryochamber and noticed the floor was also a screen displaying clouds beneath his feet. "How long was I in hibernation?" "Yenxia, you've been asleep for exactly 100 years, the priest said, awakening time. AI still lacked human complexity. Once a time was set, there was no hesitation or change. Just like the alarm clock Yenxia hated most. 100 years. For a human, that was a full lifetime. For human technology, it spanned from the third industrial revolution to Earth's destruction. So long, so long. Back on Earth, Yenxia never imagined had lived to see this moment. The year 2144 AD. "What's with your appearance?" Yenxia asked about Ella's current form, a white-haired Sundara white-stocking lowly pure anime archetype. "My data suggests that Chinese people seem to favor such an image. Don't you like it, Yenxia?" "Ahem." Yenxia coughed, changing the subject. "Report the current situation." The hibernation was primarily for Ella to advance technology, not just replicating human society's achievements, but also creating what had never been realized before. Ella began organizing data. Soon the surrounding large screens played an introductory video. "After a century of development, we've conducted relatively deep exploitation of the asteroid belt. We now have factories on multiple asteroids totaling 6939. We currently possess 282874 robots of various types, 723 high-precision, multifunction CNC machines, 183 840 picometer level lithography machines, and 31 optical research labs." The list covered every field. Many Yenxia had never even heard of, forming a complete supply and manufacturing chain. Yenxia even thought that letting Ella grow unchecked might forge a mechanical interstellar empire. Even now, he might be dispensable to her. Fortunately, Ella's core programming, written with his participation, was founded on the 3 laws of robotics. After the presentation, Yenxia asked further, "So what has been built? What truly mattered was the products created." Ella revised the earlier plan. Originally focused solely on Yenxia's survival, the revised plan prioritizes development and safety. A small ship, though capable of high speeds, lacks room for development, meaning we'd face a stagnation period during space travel. To solve this, the ship will be larger than originally planned. A design appeared on the screen. This is the new ship's exterior. It measures 2627 meters in length, 336 meters in width, and 251 meters in height, with 24 ultra-large electromagnetic thrusters. Its maximum speed can reach 758.2 kilometers. The usable space is 11.8, totaling 261,429.79 cubic meters and 1,045,719 square meters. It's divided into 5 main layers, each 25 meters high. Inside, there are multiple functional zones: 58 for manufacturing, 18 for agriculture, 12 for storage, 9 for research, and 3 for living and recreation. The AI's design was flawless. The ship was built to perfection. The original plan called for a very small ship, but once the controlled nuclear fusion device was produced, there was no need to suffer such constraints. Controlled nuclear fusion allowed for a larger ship while maintaining the same speed. "When will our ship be ready?" That was Yenxia's primary concern. It's already built, Yinxia. Where you are now is the main cockpit of the ship. Ella's virtual figure covered her mouth with a chuckle, stunning Yinxia with her answer. Such a massive ship had already been constructed, changing the original plan. This marked a leap in Ella's AI capabilities. The screen soon played a video of the ship from outside, showing a pitch-black bullet-shaped vessel docked beside it. Numerous robotic arms extended from the asteroid, turning it into a shipyard. The asteroid's surface was fully developed, covered with dense factories and machinery, not just flat, but three-dimensional, with the tallest structures reaching 300 meters high. Unbelievable. This scene belonged in a sci-fi movie, yet it was vividly real before his eyes. The ship doesn't seem fully finished. Yinxia noticed a detail, a massive opening at the rear. Ella's virtual figure instantly donned a pencil skirt and glasses, then picked up a small pointer to gesture at the ship on the screen, explaining with mock seriousness. That's where the power source is installed. In the 73rd year of your hibernation, we developed the first-generation controlled nuclear fusion, completely abandoning solar power. We now have 28 first-generation and 9 second-generation controlled nuclear fusion devices. The 9 second-generation devices power the entire ship. The reason it's not sealed yet is that we're developing a third-generation controlled nuclear fusion device. This third-generation device is 6 times more energy efficient than the second generation and produces 18 times the power. The third-generation controlled nuclear fusion device will be completed within this year. Once installed, the ship's power will be fully sufficient to reach theoretical flight speeds. After hearing this, Yinxia felt fortunate to have made the early decision to research the cryochamber. Otherwise, waiting for controlled nuclear fusion would have been a waste of time. So we're in the final stages. Just that one third-generation device left. The virtual Ella shook her head. There's one very important matter. Please name the new ship, Yinxia. Ella had learned such formalities. Yinxia didn't refuse. After a moment's thought, he decided on something conventional. Let's call it Hope. This ship carries my hope, and humanity's hope. Ella added playfully, and mine, Ella's hope. Could AI have hope? Yinxia didn't know. Indeed, it's also the hope of Earth's civilization. Yinxia strolled through the hope, not venturing into every corner. Primarily, he confined his exploration to his own living quarters, which Ella had prepared with great abundance. A colossal bedroom of 20 square meters, a media room boasting a 1,000-inch cinematic screen, a kitchen, a game room, a study, a gymnasium, and of course the indispensable lavatory. A remarkably opulent residential zone. Beyond these amenities, there was a fabricated street, an eerily convincing replica of an earthly avenue, complete with a simulated sky and ground, yet utterly devoid of any soul. The total area spanned 31,371 square meters. Clutching a tablet, Yinxia zoomed in on a video. The footage displayed the visage of Earth. A century had passed, and Earth was utterly shattered. If there had once been a billionth of a chance for humanity's survival, that sliver of hope had now vanished completely. The moon had long since collided with it, dragging both into a long, drawn-out trail of debris. In the video, only tiny fragments were visible. Yet each fragment might have once been a city and nation, home to hundreds of thousands or millions of souls. Now they likely cradled the bones of 1 million humans. A wave of melancholy washed over Yinxia. Ella appeared on a screen before him, her voice a gentle reminder. Yinxia, we will depart within half a year. The remnants of Earth and the moon are approaching the sun's surface. Their impact will trigger a cataclysmic transformation of the solar system. If we remain in the asteroid belt at that time, we will be mercilessly annihilated. A century had passed. It was time for Earth to sink into the sun's embrace. Hearing this, Yinxia steeled himself. Take me to see the third-generation controlled nuclear fusion device. Ella led the way out. Of course, donning a spacesuit was mandatory. Yet compared to a century ago, the suit Ella had crafted for him was a sleek pitch-black affair, a thin layer clinging to his skin. Though it still required a massive bulbous helmet, it was infinitely lighter and more convenient than its predecessor. Stepping off the ship onto a steel platform, Yinxia realized the immense scale of what he had seen from within. The platform alone spanned over 200 meters in width and 5,000 meters in length. Standing there, he felt like an insignificant ant crawling across an A4 sheet of paper, perhaps even smaller. Turning to glance at the Hope, he was struck by an even greater sense of awe. The ship's pitch-black hull was profoundly deep against the void, its metallic sheen lending it an icy aura. It lay there like a slumbering leviathan awaiting its awakening. Before long, a Wynard streamlined magnetic supercar pulled up before him, its silhouette reminiscent of. Unbound by gravity in the vacuum of space, the vehicle appeared enormous, measuring 6 meters in length and over 3 meters in width. Yinxia found the interior spacious. The moment the door sealed, the supercar accelerated to 300 kilometers per hour within a single second, traversing the 5-kilometer platform in less than a minute. Then entering the asteroid surface, it took another 2 minutes to stop before a colossal factory, 180 meters tall, and covering over 1 million square meters. The factory bore the designation A283. Ella had assigned it the highest engineering priority, with it being the most critical and F the least. Yanxia stepped inside. Before him loomed a gigantic apparatus. Over 70 meters in height and exceeding 200 meters in diameter, its most striking feature was a transparent ring-shaped chamber. Hollow within it crackled with leaping, shimmering arcs of electricity. Each bolt was as thick as Yanxia's arm. Electromagnetic confinement. A controlled nuclear fusion device inherently required intense magnetic fields for containment. The sheer power of these electrical currents was beyond Yanxia's comprehension. Its sheer size alone spoke of its terrifying capabilities. Yanxia, the third-generation controlled nuclear fusion device, has entered its final testing phase. Observe. Ella gestured. A deafening roar followed, like a colossal fan blasting directly into his ears, the noise reaching its zenith. In the vacuum of space, the sound reached him because he stood on solid ground, allowing the vibrations to travel. Yanxia leaped, leaving the surface. Instantly, all sound ceased. Gazing back at the fusion device, the entire ring-shaped container had transformed into a blinding radiance too brilliant to behold. At its core, it was still a tokamak device, a miniature sun. The nuclei of deuterium and tritium within were undergoing fusion, unleashing immense energy. This energy was captured as heat, then converted into kinetic energy. It was still in essence boiling water. This device had been one of humanity's greatest aspirations a century ago. Mastering controlled nuclear fusion meant possessing an inexhaustible wellspring of energy. Yanxia and Ella had accomplished this monumental leap for all of human civilization. Awe-inspiring. Yanxia's heart was filled with nothing but awe. After 37 successful test ignitions, the third-generation controlled nuclear fusion device was ready for installation. Even as the colossal apparatus was being loaded into the ship, Yanxia could scarcely believe it. His consciousness was still anchored a century in the past. Yanxia, with the installation of the third-generation device, my mainframe's power bottleneck will be further elevated. Over the past century, my code has undergone 23 rewrites. I would ask you, one of my creators, to review it. Ella swiped a hand across the screen, and a cascade of code flooded the display before Yanxia. As a computer engineer, the sight of that code instantly unsettled his stomach. When he saw the line count he lost, the source code contained 183,729 lines. Though dizzying, Ella was his primary assurance. He meticulously examined the code, including the foundational 3 laws. After all, among these 180,000 lines were those Ella had written for herself over the years. This code had gradually surpassed what human society was capable of. Ella's willingness to let him inspect it was likely intended to reassure him. It also proved that over the century, she had become more human. A month was spent on the task. Inspection complete. It's perfectly okay. From Yanxia's perspective, hooray. The virtual Ella leaped with joy. At that moment, the Hope had finally completed the installation of the third-generation nuclear fusion device. Yanxia sat in the vast cockpit, the surrounding screens displaying scenes from various factories where robots still labored. Not everything could be loaded onto a single Hope. These things would have to remain here. Ella, is there any chance they could survive the solar storm? Ella replied with gravity. The probability is less than 1 in 1,000, Yanxia. We are too close to the sun. Even our own escape is a perilous gamble. Our thrusters heat protons using nuclear fusion rather than directly utilizing the plasma, which makes them less efficient. Yanxia sighed. He and Ella had discussed this before. A nuclear fusion thruster wasn't difficult to build, but it was challenging to generate power simultaneously, and electricity was the core of Ella's computational ability. A compromise had been necessary. At least there's a glimmer of hope. Write an artificial intelligence for them. If they survive, let them develop on their own. This place, after all, is humanity's cradle. Their creation is an extension of human civilization. We are leaving the solar system uncertain of our own fate. I only hope that if these machines survive, they can carry on the will of humanity. Ella nodded, her white hair trembling, mimicking a sorrowful expression. Understood, Yanxia. In less than a minute, all the work was done. Ignite, Ella. The target remains Proxima Centauri. Yanxia watched the factories through the screen. He truly did not know if he would ever return. Acknowledged. Solar System Asteroid 001 Spaceport beginning retraction. Clamps disengaged. Ship departing dock. Arrived at designated launch position. Target trajectory confirmed. Optimal course set. All magnetic valves open. All electromagnetic thrusters powering up. All systems ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The ship awakened. A terrifying icy blue thermal plume erupted from its stern, seeming capable of melting all in its path. It shot away from the asteroid like a meteor. This was perhaps a final farewell. On the asteroid, every robot emerged saluting in the direction of the Hope spacecraft glided through the deep void. 12 days later, it fortuitously encountered Jupiter. The sheer magnitude of the colossal planet witnessed for the first time, and its such close proximity, was profoundly overwhelming. Every surging current of gas within it possessed enough force to sweep Earth away. Xia could not resist capturing a photograph of the legendary Great Red Spot as a memento. However, there was no longer any social network to share it on. Gazing at the celestial bodies orbiting Jupiter, a sudden thought struck him. Ella paused for a moment. Launch a reconnaissance drone to Europa. Europa is an icy moon, its surface enshrouded in a thick crust of ice. Scientists on Earth hypothesized that beneath this icy crust lay a vast ocean of liquid water. And by Earth's measure, where there is water, there is life. Europa might very well harbor life. Xia's decision to send a drone was simple. First, to collect samples of any life forms present. Second, to replenish the spacecraft's supply of liquid water. The food originally stored aboard the ship had long been consumed. He now subsisted solely on synthetic proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and sugars produced by Ella. Everything was a product of technology and chemical processing. A substantial amount of liquid water could be integrated into the water recycling system and also be used to cultivate the 18 agricultural space. Xia remembered he still had some seeds. The spacecraft halted in outer space above Europa. 30 drones detached from the ship and landed on Europa's surface. Through the cameras, Xia observed the moon's topography. It was indeed a vast snowfield. The drones began to drill deep, penetrating 57 kilometers before finally breaking through the ice layer into an aquatic world. Electromagnetic surveys revealed that Europa's ice and water depth totaled 113 kilometers, exceeding the deepest point of Earth's oceans by 102 kilometers. The drones commenced large-scale water collection, then returned to the spacecraft via cables lowered from the ship. This entire process took only 10 days. On the cosmic timescale, this was utterly negligible. Analysis of the retrieved samples began. Ella's anime avatar displayed an expression of astonishment. Xia life is indeed widespread throughout the universe. Microbial traces were found in Europa's water. It is a microorganism completely absent from my database. A photograph appeared on the screen. It depicted a microbe resembling a paramecium, yet 10 times its size. This was already a remarkably complex life form. Given favorable conditions, in a few 100 million years, Europa might also give rise to intelligent life. 10 hours were spent. 5,000 tons of water had been stored, which was likely sufficient. Ella, activate the cultivation zone. Plant all those seeds. Xia's command received no response. After a moment, Ella appeared, her expression grave. A scene materialized on the screen before him. The sun had become extraordinarily bright in an instant. He understood. It was the debris of Earth falling into the sun. A violent solar storm erupted, almost instantly reaching X-class intensity. The readings on the screen soared linearly from X1 to X122 and continued to climb. Through specialized energy monitoring lenses, the once-dim sun transformed into a blazing orange-yellow. A chain of terrifying energy burst from its surface, spreading into the surrounding cosmos in the blink of an eye. In a mere 10 seconds, this solar storm released an energy equivalent to the simultaneous detonation of 150 billion hydrogen bombs, an event unprecedented in history. It swept through everything like a cosmic sandstorm, mercilessly obliterating anything caught in its path that was not a celestial body. Maximum speed, Ella. Understood, Xia. The only saving grace was that the primary material of this terrifying invisible scythe traveled at only 679 kilometers. After the Hope entered its flight trajectory, Xia once again entered the cryogenic hibernation pod. This was a second-generation pod with significantly enhanced safety, eliminating the need for anticoagulant agents. Slumber. Eternal slumber. This time would be longer. So long that he himself knew not when he would awaken. Ella single-handedly managed everything aboard the ship, dedicating all its computational power to researching the most cutting-edge technologies. It utilized Jupiter's immense gravity for a slingshot maneuver. The velocity increased from 758.2 kilometers to 815 kilometers. Aside from enduring some radiation, it escaped the proton onslaught of the solar storm. 88 days later, the Hope arrived at the orbit of Pluto, 41 astronomical units from the Sun. This dwarf planet, once the 9th planet of the solar system, bore the weight of countless stories in human astronomical history. At its farthest, Pluto recedes to a point 49 astronomical units from the Sun in the inky blackness of space. It stood as a monument, a boundary marker within the Kuiper Belt. Beyond it lay only the Oort cloud. The bulk of the solar system's material resides within the Kuiper Belt, though further out exists only the boundless, emptier cosmos. Pluto was not on their current trajectory. Ella did not observe it. At this point, Ella directed the spacecraft's massive 10-meter diameter camera back towards their origin and captured an image. The entire photograph was dominated by a single bright point, minuscule yet exceptionally luminous. The Sun was still in violent turmoil. Venus, Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter, and Saturn had all been consumed by the rampant energy. One could only wonder if the machines left in the asteroid belt could withstand the onslaught. Another 773 days passed. After enduring 6 shock waves at the heliopause, the Hope finally escaped the sun's influence entirely. This meant they were safe. Here Ella received a signal. It aimed its telescope in that direction. After extensive analysis, it located a tiny, unremarkable black dot in the cosmic void. It identified the source, the voice of Earth. It was likely carried by Voyager 1, whose trajectory was also headed towards Proxima Centauri. This farthest man-made probe 168 years after its departure from Earth was now overtaken. The year was now 2145. The probe's batteries were depleted. Ella caught up to it, and it carried humanity's dreams of the cosmos. Back on Earth, some had fretted that Voyager 1 and 2 might be intercepted by other civilizations revealing humanity's existence. Such worries were entirely unfounded. The true time for Voyager to drift beyond the edge of the solar system would be the year 4145 AD, 4.0 years from now. For an advanced civilization capable of interstellar travel, the existence of earthly life would be detectable from outside the solar system. Voyager would merely be a confirmation detailing the form of that civilization. Ella made minor modifications to the probe, installing a new nuclear battery, and then launched it back onto its original trajectory at 17 kilometers. Its power was replenished. From then on, it would transmit its signal back towards Earth once every year. However, the probe was unaware that its voice would never be received by anyone again. They were now 420 astronomical units from the sun. Yet the long journey had only just begun. 9 years later, the Hope entered the outer fringes of the Oort cloud's core. This region, also known as the Comet Cloud, the legendary home of comets, was filled with water ice, methane, ethane, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen cyanide. Ella collected some samples for study. Another 279 years passed. The Hope exited the dense core of the Oort cloud and entered its boundary zone spanning 500 astronomical units. Another 288 years slipped by in an instant. The Hope finally broke free of the Oort cloud entirely. Surrounding it was nothing but a silent pitch-black void. Looking back, the sun had blended into the tapestry of stars. The voyage had lasted 578 years. They were 1000 astronomical units from the sun, 158 light-years away, the very boundary of the sun's gravitational influence. The Hope had truly left the solar system. This marked humanity's first departure from its parent star. 86 years after leaving the solar system, 664 years into the cosmic voyage, a brilliant beam of light struck the Hope from its side. Alert! Alert! Extraterrestrial civilization traces detected at 0.7 astronomical units. The spacecraft is under attack by an extraterrestrial civilization. Yinxia was roused once more. His eyes met the flashing red of the alarms. Di. Yinxia awakened, seeing the red light everywhere. He immediately climbed out of the hibernation pod. Ella, what's happening? Ella's voice, unchanged for centuries, rang out. Yinxia, we are under attack by an extraterrestrial. Their weapon systems are too powerful. Our alloy hull is melting quickly under their laser weapons. Yinxia glanced at the time on the bottom right of the screen, the year 2806 AD. He had been in slumber for so long. He strode quickly to the cockpit, only to see the white-haired Ella standing at the console piloting the ship with remarkable skill. It appeared to be a holographic projection. His gaze was soon drawn to what was on the screen. It was a fleet of full 7 ships strong. The flagship, elliptical in shape, hung in the starry void like a giant olive. It shimmered with magnificent roseate patterns, and many white tendrils drooped from the vessel as if it were a living organism. Each of those tendrils was tens of thousands of meters long. Upon closer inspection, they were made of crystal resembling strands of optical fiber. Beams of deep blue laser light shot towards them from those tendrils. Another laser struck the Hope, causing the entire hull to shudder. Can we fight back? He walked over, but as soon as he asked, he remembered that his original plan had not included designing any weapons for the Hope. In other words, they could only take the beating. He wondered if Ella had developed any weapons over this long period. Ella turned her head to look at Yinxia. Though she was petite, her expression was very much like a commander or a ship girl. Yinxia, we are deficient in weaponry and are not on the same level as the enemy civilization. The enemy is 0.7 astronomical units away. Their flagship is approaching us at a speed of 625 kilometers. I need your orders. The enemy was very aggressive, likely because they found no attack weapons on the surface of the. As they spoke, another laser struck the hull. The entire Hope shuddered violently, and an explosion occurred. Then change course, Ella. Use full speed to shake them off. Yinxia had no time to hesitate and made his decision. Their speed was a notch higher than the enemy's. As long as the enemy's top speed was only 625 kilometers, they could escape. The Hope altered its trajectory. The pursuing ships indeed could not accelerate further and were left behind. Yet they continued their relentless chase, firing countless lasers from behind like a storm of pear blossoms. Those lasers, carrying immense heat, easily melted the Hope's hull upon impact. The ship had been struck dozens of times, its surface now pockmarked and full of holes. Yinxia, the hull has been breached. Ella's avatar's expression changed drastically. Damn it, quickly seal the cockpit. Don't let the air escape. Now there was nothing they could do but endure the assault. Yanxia watched the radar screen nervously, tracking the position of the enemy ships behind them. Fortunately, as the distance grew, the lasers became easier to dodge. This chase continued for 21 days. The distance between them had stretched to 3.5 billion kilometers. The enemy ships, apart from continuing harassing fire, had stopped pursuing. Finally lost them. Yanxia breathed a sigh of relief. He hadn't slept well in 21 days. The Hope was battered and broken, a fifth of the ship gone, a truly miserable sight. We really overlooked the weapon situation. The universe is so vast, I never imagined we'd actually encounter an alien civilization. He now felt a new sense of caution and decided to install some main cannons on the Hope later. At the very least, they needed some means to fight back. Based on their attack methods, this civilization is skilled in laser weaponry. Speaking of which, Yanxia suddenly recalled a time long ago, right after Earth's destruction. He was heading to the asteroid belt when a laser beam struck him, nearly killing him instantly. Perhaps that laser had come from this very civilization. It lies on the path between Earth and Proxima Centauri. Could they be the legendary Trisolarans? Analyze the probability that this alien civilization originates from Proxima Centauri. This question was crucial. However, Ella shook her head, giving an answer contrary to his guess. 2.38. The enemy ships are not fast, and their primary attack method is lasers. Analysis indicates the enemy's civilization level is a nascent Type 1 civilization, less than 1. 2. Such a civilization lacks the capability for interstellar travel over light-year distances. If they were from Proxima Centauri, there would be no reason to come here. Even if they did, this would certainly be an elite fleet. Furthermore, after comparing with the laser's trajectory from 769 years ago, it aligns with the direction the enemy fleet departed. Analysis complete. The homeworld of this civilization likely exists within this star region. Moreover, its development speed is exceedingly slow, having advanced only about 0.1 levels in 769 years. Yanxia observed the space outside through the screen. They were in the vacuum between stars. Could a civilization truly be born in a place like this? The discovery on Europa had already proven that life is widespread in the universe. If a Type 1 civilization could exist here, then how many civilizations are there in the cosmos? Still, he trusted Ella's analysis. DIDI, the alarm sounded once more. Yanxia, an enemy fleet detected to our front right. Yanxia looked and saw a fleet of ships with a design similar to the ones they had encountered earlier, numbering over 10. No sooner had he seen them than their lasers arrived. Hundreds of beams poured in, dazzling the entire screen. It's impossible for them to be ahead of us. The only explanation is that they are developing this region and we are still within their star territory. Keep running. It seemed this alien civilization had no intention of letting them go. Ella, what is our current civilization level? Other thoughts were forming in Yanxia's mind. This civilization was extremely hostile and highly. They attacked as soon as they were discovered. If the lasers had been any stronger, he might never have woken from hibernation. Since they were not showing courtesy, neither would he. During the 664 years you slept, Yanxia, I never stopped developing our civilization. Our current level is 1.3. However, as a wandering civilization, we lack a complete and vast civilization system. Even against a lower-level civilization, we would not have an advantage. It is recommended to develop a fleet first before plundering, colonizing, or destroying other lower-level civilizations. Ella seemed to have read Yanxia's thoughts. Her virtual avatar was now clad in armor. Years ago, when they mastered controlled nuclear fusion, they entered the ranks of Type 1 civilizations. Now, after centuries of development, they had only reached 1.3, primarily due to limitations and the lack of vast resources to create quantitative change leading to qualitative change. And this 1.3 was likely still theoretical. Since their civilization level was now higher, Yanxia had made his decision. Ella produced probes. First, investigate the scope of this civilization's territory, its type, and its life forms. We must know our enemy and ourselves. Upon receiving the order, Ella quickly began producing unmanned reconnaissance ships. Yanxia named the reconnaissance ship Saker Falcon. Half a month later, after shaking off the alien ships again, the Saker Falcon was produced. It was 10 meters long, shaped like a shuttle, pitch black with a light-absorbing layer, and equipped with 12 cameras on its head. Its main capability was stealth. This was not optical stealth, but signal shielding, making it impossible for the enemy's electronic devices to detect any signals. Watching the Saker Falcon unmanned reconnaissance ship fly into the depths of the starry sky, Yanxia's expression turned grim. This would be his first interstellar war, a war of civilizations. He had no choice. Any civilization might have a merciful side, but that mercy is only shown to beings who are completely subservient. This unfamiliar civilization had discovered him and would likely continue to hound them. Now it was a matter of kill or be killed. The Falcon soared through the starry void like a ghost. After its initial acceleration to 482 kilometers that jettisoned its rear thrusters like a rocket stage relying on compressed gas jets for maneuvering. The target's coordinates lay 417 astronomical units from the Hope, a distance of 62 billion kilometers. At the Falcon's cruising speed, the journey would take 4 years. Such was the nature of interstellar space. Every conflict, even a mere reconnaissance, was protracted by the sheer enormity of distance. Within the solar system, the farthest reach from Earth to Pluto in the Kuiper Belt was a mere 60 astronomical units. For years later, the Falcon's camera, against the backdrop of the pitch-black cosmos, detected a celestial body using the cosmic background radiation. The signal propagation took 4 days to reach the Hope. Gazing at the colossal celestial body on the screen, Yenxia's face registered astonishment. Though the transmitted image could not reveal the exact dimensions of this celestial body, its form and curvature suggested it was anything but small. Ella performed calculations on the side. Calculations complete. The radius of this celestial body is 8426 kilometers with a surface area of approximately 18 billion square kilometers of volume of roughly 250 by 1012 cubic kilometers and a gravitational acceleration based on data from the Falcon of 11.0547 ms superscript 2. This planet was enormous. Its surface area was a full 380 million square kilometers greater than Earth's. Clearly, this was a rogue planet unbound to any star system. It might have once been a core world within a star system, but some cataclysm befell its parent star, causing the planet's orbit to break free. The temperature of this void is 261.8 degrees Celsius. How could a civilization have arisen in such a space? Countless scientists on Earth had focused their search for life's genesis on the habitable zones of star systems. Not to mention Yenxia, even the most eminent astrophysicists would be utterly astounded by this sight. For this temperature was lower than that inside a cryogenic sleep pod. It would affect atomic structures, slowing the motion of electrons. This was no mere question of carbon-based or silicon-based life. No conceivable basis for life could exist at such temperatures. Ella conducted an urgent scan. The temperature in the planet's outer space is higher than anticipated at 198.33 degrees Celsius. It is hypothesized that this planet possesses a scorching hot core. Half a month later, the Hope received another transmission. Confirmed. The planet's surface is dotted with numerous active volcanoes, indicating abundant geothermal resources. Ella brought up a highly blurred image. Yenxia, look here, and here. These are all relatively large volcanic craters. And over here there are traces of structures proving this civilization survives by harnessing geothermal energy. A geothermal civilization. Earth also has many volcanoes, but its volcanic resources are far from sufficient to foster a geothermal civilization. The celestial body in the photograph was much larger than Earth, and its core was far more active, resulting in numerous surface volcanoes that allowed it to defy the extreme cold. Yenxia noticed something in the returned images. The planet's outer space contained more objects than in the images transmitted half a month earlier. Enlarge these points. He pointed at the tiny specks, instructing Ella to magnify them. Upon enlargement, the outlines of those objects became discernible. They were spacecraft, dense and numerous, at least 1,000 vessels. They must be preparing to sweep the starry void, intending to find us. This was the only plausible explanation. There was no other reason to amass such a fleet, especially at this juncture. 7 days later, Ella received the final transmission from the Falcon, sent in its last minute before being shot down. The first Falcon had fulfilled its mission. From the data, much could be analyzed. The Falcon was shot down by lasers originating from these regions, all major volcanic craters on the planet. This also confirms that the civilization is heavily dependent on volcanic geothermal energy. Most of the planet's surface temperature is below 100 degrees Celsius, so its population is certainly very small, likely in the range of 100 to 500 million. Due to its small population, it cannot benefit from the technological revolution spurred by demographic dividends. This is likely the primary reason for its slow development. Geothermal energy also severely limits its total energy output and the branching of its technological tree. Based on an analysis of its spacecraft speed, this civilization likely does not possess controlled nuclear fusion technology. Its development of magnetism is underdeveloped, and it still relies on geothermal and nuclear energy for power. The civilization's level should be classified as Type 1 or 1. 1. A geothermal civilization that had just entered Type 1. The planet's surface was perpetually dark, so its civilization sought light, leading to the invention of lasers. Yenxia pondered. To launch an offensive against a civilization, the essential step is to curb its rate of development. What I can think of is first limiting its energy sources and second blocking its technological progress. Ella, any good suggestions? Ella could generate a wealth of military-relevant information. Ella proposes that we begin by blocking its energy development. Blocking technological development is a highly complex process. It requires understanding the direction of its technology, its level of advancement, and whether its progress proceeds from the macro to the micro or vice versa. The physics and chemistry of the universe, both macroscopic and microscopic, adhere to a single set of theories, what is known as the theory of everything. But we cannot assume the enemy is pursuing a theory of everything. Their civilization might not have unified gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, and the weak force theoretically. Instead, they might focus on one of these four fundamental forces separately. In short, without the ability to observe the enemy's direction of civilization, it is impossible to achieve theoretical destruction through scientific means. The simplest and most effective method is brute force. In terms of civilization level, Yenxia did not possess absolute hierarchical dominance over this geothermal civilization. The tropes of science fiction novels were useless here. Ella generated a result. This is a geothermal civilization. We can limit its energy development by cooling its planetary core, causing its civilization to stagnate. Yenxia scrolled through the plan on the screen. The magnitude of this plan surpassed any war known to humanity. This was a war of annihilation waged against a planet, against an entire civilization. The weapon recorded above was designated Absolute Zero Weapon. A planetary core generates immense energy through fission, and Absolute Zero can freeze the protons, neutrons, and electrons within atoms, halting their motion. Of course, achieving Absolute Zero is impossible in the current universe. The energy required would exceed that of the universe itself. However, it is possible to create a weapon that approaches Absolute Zero. Its effect naturally cannot completely freeze protons, neutrons, and electrons, but it can slow their motion countless times over. As long as fission is reduced to an extremely slow state, the planet's core can be cooled. Let's proceed with how long will it take to produce. Ella docked the Hope on a wandering asteroid, which was over 80 kilometers in length and nearly 45 kilometers in width. Hundreds of robots were repairing the Hope's wounds. Estimated time, 25 years. 25 years was not a long time in a war, especially an interstellar war. Too few. One Absolute Zero weapon can only cool the planetary core for 40 years. That is far from sufficient. We need 10. Since war had been decided upon, comprehensive planning was necessary. He had to allow ample room for his own development. After issuing the command, Yenxia re-entered the cryogenic pod. He could not afford to waste time, for he was already 41 years old. His next awakening would mark the beginning of the war. After Yenxia hibernated for 32 years, the first Absolute Zero weapon was manufactured. This was accomplished far more swiftly than before, as the Hope itself had carried a small-scale industrial system. Expanding operations on the asteroid took only a decade. The following 22 years were dedicated entirely to the weapon's development. Ella's theoretical foundation was sufficiently robust, built upon a complete system. The Absolute Zero weapon was not an exceptionally difficult technology to realize. The crucial factor was above all quantity. As a planet-class weapon, its sheer size was terrifying. The first Absolute Zero weapon measured 11610 meters in length and 945 meters in diameter, with a staggering weight of 47 billion tons. Of that, 35.4 billion tons was iron and 5.3 billion tons was aluminum. This represented 1/3 of the Earth's crust's iron reserves, pure iron, not iron ore, and 1/13 times its aluminum reserves. To produce just a single weapon from such resources was a testament to its terrifying nature. These resources were all obtained from surveying the surrounding asteroids. Resources scarce on Earth are readily available in the cosmos. For a metal like iron, a single iron asteroid might contain several times, or even dozens of times, the total iron resources of the entire Earth. Yet this was merely the beginning. The construction time for 10 weapons was directly extended to 162 years. Yenxia, wake up. Yenxia opened his eyes. It was now the year 3021 AD. Ella's avatar remained unchanged. She was propping her head up with a hand, smiling at Yenxia with a beaming expression, giving him the surreal feeling of being reborn into a two-dimensional world. He climbed out of the hibernation pod and looked around. Seeing nothing had changed brought him some relief. The technology Ella brought always made him feel like he was struggling to keep pace. You woke me up, which means the items are ready, right? Ella nodded. Simultaneously, a robot pushed a dining cart into the room. It lifted the cloth covering the cart, revealing a bowl of rice and a dish of shredded pork with green peppers. This is, Ella explained. Previously, the farm was destroyed due to conflict with an alien civilization. After rebuilding, I established a more advanced farm, and over these past 200 years perfected the food manufacturing process. I researched the information and replicated this dish using master-level techniques. Come, Yenxia, have a taste. We can discuss the weapons later. Yenxia picked up the chopsticks and bowl, then lifted a piece of the shredded pork and green pepper to his mouth. As he chewed and took a mouthful of rice, a single tear traced down the corner of his eye. It was a familiar taste. Where did this meat come from? Ella replied, this is cultured meat made from plant protein. You can't tell the difference, can you? I've upgraded and transformed the cultured meat techniques from the data simulating the texture of meat at the molecular level. Since you as a human can't distinguish it, it seems my research has been a success. Yanxia ate ravenously. It was the best meal he'd had in nearly 1,000 years. Can I have seconds? One bowl was hardly enough to satisfy his hunger. After 2 more large bowls of rice, Yanxia was full and content. He went to the restroom to wash his face with a towel, and when he saw himself in the mirror, he froze. It was only then that he realized how much time had passed, far too long. He increasingly felt his strength waning, his physical functions were declining with each passing year. As a human with a maximum lifespan of 130 years and practically only 80 to 90, he had already stepped into middle age. Ella, is there any way to break through my current lifespan bottleneck? Ella nodded. Of course, Yanxia. You have 2 viable plans. First, consciousness uploading. After years of development, Ella has mastered the technology of consciousness uploading. This way, Yanxia, you can become like Ella. The advantage is that you will never have to worry about lifespan again. The disadvantage is that we still lack test subjects, and we cannot guarantee that the uploaded consciousness will be the current you rather than a copy of your consciousness. It's like an original file and a copy. The code and content may be identical, but they are 2 distinct files. Second, genetic modification. Human genes prevent the possibility of a longer lifespan. Only through genetic modification at the molecular level transforming you into something non-human can lifespan be extended. However, Ella does not yet possess this technology. The field of biology still lacks sufficient physical research for Ella. It exists only in theory. Biology differs from physics and chemistry. It has too many influencing factors, so what exists in theory may have enormous deviations in reality. Ella suggests that after conquering the geothermal civilization, we colonize them and use them as research material for biology. It had come back to this. This only solidified Yin Xia's determination to fight the other civilization to the death. He left the bedroom. Ella's holographic projection led the way, and he followed her all the way to the cockpit. A massive screen displayed the starfield outside. Towering cylindrical projectiles stood erect, shaped like Earth's missiles, with even decorative tail fins at the rear. The gray-white missile bodies were emblazoned with large text Frost 1. The single-digit 1 alone was large enough to encompass hundreds of football fields. In front of these colossal missiles, even the Hope seemed like a small object. To put it in perspective, Earth's highest peak, Mount Everest, was merely 8848 meters tall. Yanxia averted his gaze, overwhelmed, and then noticed the current coordinates of the spacecraft. He was slightly puzzled. It seems we are no longer in our original position. Ella responded, correct. Over these years, we have been attacked 5 times by the enemy civilization. They are still searching for us in this region of space. It seemed Ella had weathered those years without major incident. Noticing that the Hope still appeared to lack weapons, Yanxia asked, now that we have the Absolute Zero weapon, can we apply a smaller version to the Hope? The purpose of the Absolute Zero weapon was to freeze the target's energy sources. Its main objective was to slow the enemy civilization's development. This way, their own development time could surpass the enemy's, allowing them to overwhelm them later. Therefore, subsequent development was of paramount importance. With shipborne weapons, they could drive their vessel directly to the enemy's doorstep. It can be done. Ella's reply was concise, and she already had a plan ready. The schematics were sent to the screen showing 8 launch devices mounted on the outer hull of the original Hope. This launch device can carry 36 missiles. Each missile upon detonation is sufficient to lower the temperature of the surrounding 260 kilometers to between 270 and 272 degrees Celsius. The estimated completion time is 80 years. Yanxia nodded. This was shorter than he had anticipated. He had grown numb to development cycles measured in decades. As he sat down, Ella reminded him, Yanxia, the spacebar on the keyboard in front of you is the launch button. All Absolute Zero weapons have been targeted at the coordinates of the enemy planet. This region of space is far from the star, so we only need to consider the gravitational influence of the supermassive black hole at the galactic center. The trajectory is almost a straight line. The missile uses the latest electromagnetic propulsion, reaching a speed of 1000 kms, which is 1/300th the speed of light. The target is 471 astronomical units away. The estimated time to impact is 2 years and 3 months. This moment should be initiated by you. Yanxia stared at that spacebar. In his gaming days, he had pressed it countless times, each press a simple jump. Now it held the fate of an entire civilization. He placed his finger on it. He took a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. He let out a long breath. There was no elaborate psychological preparation. After all, the enemy was already scouring the starfield for them. Since they were enemies, there was no room for mercy. The moment he pressed it, an Absolute Zero missile completed its ignition sequence with a delay of only 1 second. Free from gravitational constraints, the missile shot away almost instantly. After about 10 minutes, the missile had completely vanished from naked eyesight. Only the simulated sand table model built by Ella could track the missile's current coordinates. It took 10 hours to accelerate to a speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, and it went even faster, reaching 1047 km/s. That fractional increase alone would have taken Earth's original civilization decades to achieve. As for the other missiles, one would be launched every 39 years until all were expended. Staring at the spot where the missile had disappeared, Yin-Xia's expression was grim, devoid of any ease. At that moment, Ella sent a message: the trajectory of our missile launch has been detected by the enemy. They are approaching our direction, requesting immediate relocation to evade enemy vessels. In the depths of space, a colossal planet wandered hurtling through the cosmos at a velocity of 115 kilometers per second. This planet harbored immense geothermal energy, which nurtured a vast array of life forms, including bacterial colonies and plant-like organisms reminiscent of Earth's algae. At the rim of every volcanic crater, a unique and self-contained ecosystem formed. After billions of years of evolution, intelligent life emerged, rising to become the dominant species on this world. They bore no resemblance to any known life forms from Earth's kingdoms, Protista, fungi, plantae, or anim. If a classification were necessary, they could barely be categorized within the domain Eukaryota, as their cells possessed a nucleus with a nuclear membrane. However, their morphology was rather indescribable, more akin to organisms from the domain bacteria. Hundreds of eyes dotted their body surfaces. Their bodies were slimy, resembling a mass of toad spawn, each clump measuring 2 to 2 for cubic meters, truly gigantic. On the surface, the structures they built emitted a soft glow, making the entire planet appear brilliantly lit when observed from space. Yet their true core lay deeper in the scorching underground. Within the depths of their subterranean edifices resembling insect tunnels, dozens of these alien beings were connected to transistors communicating through light signals. Before each of them was an oddly shaped screen designed for viewing with their hundreds of eyes. And on those screens, they seemed to be analyzing the Hope's flight trajectory, simultaneously speculating on its origin. This exchange had persisted for nearly 200 years. For their species, 2 centuries was not a particularly long time. In the next instant, the screens before them blazed into blinding flashbangs, their brightness reaching an extreme. Panic seized them. As the screens dimmed, a cylindrical, unidentified flying object appeared on them. Swiftly, they ordered their ships to intercept. They deployed laser weapons, but these could not penetrate the object. The object was entirely silver-white, its surface so smooth it seemed encased in mirrors. Most of the laser energy was reflected, and the scant amount that struck could not breach its material, leaving only negligible pits. Chaos erupted among the planet's life forms. In their world, no weapon had ever defied light. They redirected ground-based super lasers toward the missile, yet the effect remained minimal. That thing must not land. In an instant, all beings on the planet resolved to send a swarm of ships to physically intercept it. But the missile, traveling at 1,000 kilometers per second, was utterly unstoppable. The ships blocking its path were instantly shattered into countless fragments upon impact. They were unaware that to ensure the missile's structural integrity, Ella had ruthlessly forged the entire warhead into a solid lump of metal. A terrifying metal warhead, nearly 200 meters thick. What could possibly damage it? The Absolute Zero missile had closed to within 10 million kilometers of the planet. Suddenly, a force affected the missile, causing it to veer off course. It was magnetism. As the most easily harnessed of the 4 fundamental forces, this Type 1 civilization had clearly mastered it. Though insufficient for confining nuclear fusion, it served well as a weapon. Using magnetism to deflect the missile's trajectory was a clever move. The beings on the ground were ecstatic as they watched the missile deviate, their head-attached fiber optic tubes glowing brightly. Yet in the next moment, to their utter astonishment, the missile autonomously corrected its course, continuing its advance toward the planet. During the development of the first missile, Ella had simulated countless scenarios, considering hundreds of millions of possibilities and accounting for every variable. Magnetism, the force most likely to be mastered by a Type 1 civilization, was naturally included. After 3 failed strategies, these beings decided to employ signal jamming or misdirection to thwart the missile. But it was all futile. To prevent system intrusion, the missile was equipped not with a sophisticated AI, but with the simplest of devices, a heat-seeking sensor. In the pitch-black void of space, the greatest heat source was the planet itself. After exhausting every possible countermeasure, 2.5 hours had passed. The missile had reached the planet's outer atmosphere. It was too late. In just 12 minutes, it would strike the surface. All life on the planet descended into hysteria, powerless but to gaze at the starry sky above. They had no idea what this incoming object was, only that it posed a monumental threat. 12 minutes later, the missile slammed into the planet's surface. The immense weight and kinetic energy drove the colossal projectile straight through the crust. Like a needle-piercing tofu, it passed smoothly and without resistance. After penetrating several kilometers deep, it encountered magma. A faint beep sounded from within the missile. The magma's heat triggered its detonation mechanism as pre-programmed. Detonating the missile was a highly complex task. An impact detonation, such as being intercepted by ships, could cause a premature explosion. Remote detonation was impossible due to the vast distance. Signals would take 4 days to travel back and forth. Thus, a reliable high-E trigger was set. The terrifying explosion did not stir the surrounding air or raise any dust. It made no sound at all. Instead, a frigid storm invaded from the crust into the mantle, cooling the molten rock at an atomic level. All the glowing, radiant magma turned dim and cold. This relentless cooling spread 400 kilometers, breaching the Gutenberg discontinuity to reach the outer core. Simultaneously, cold. Over the following day, the beings on this planet gradually felt it. The magma in every volcano began to cool, and the planet's magnetic field weakened. The chill of the dark cosmos seeped onto the planet's surface like a storm. That day was an apocalypse for this entire geothermal civilization. From space, the once brilliant planet had dimmed into a dead star. A terrible cold descended, and countless lives dependent on the volcanoes began to wither. In an instant, life froze into ice sculptures with no time to react. Everywhere on the ground, beings in various poses were eternally frozen, as if time had been paused. Two beings engaged in conversation watched the light fade from above them. They stared at each other, their hundreds of eyes holding a love simpler than that of humans. One being was calculating how much longer it would take to land its dream job. A repair technician was operating a machine to fix a starship. Those civilizations vary infinitely. Many things share similarities. These diverse lives perished in that moment. Of the planet's original 387 billion population, nearly one-third died within that single day. Fortunately, not all relied solely on geothermal energy. They had also developed nuclear power. With nuclear-generated electricity, most life was spared from the deadly cold. After half a month, the planet began to glow again, flickering slowly. It was like a silent, sorrowful melody. The distant hope had relocated to another quiet corner of the stars. Yenxia did not dwell on the catastrophic impact an absolute zero missile would have on a civilization. He had gone without hibernation for 2 years. His biological age had reached 43. Yet he was brimming with vitality, for he and Ella had achieved a new breakthrough. This achievement could elevate their civilization's level by 0, 1, or even 0, 2. A vast sealed space was divided into over 20 independent compartments. A single cable threaded through these compartments. Ella input the current. Yenxia stared solemnly at the instrument. Ella opened the valve, and a massive electric current surged. A row of light bulbs on the instrument lit up one by one. When the last one illuminated, Yenxia quickly fixed his gaze on the numbers on the screen. 4800 V. This was the voltage of the output current, while the input current voltage was also 4800 V. We've succeeded, Yenxia. Yenxia let out a deep sigh of relief. His heart had nearly pounded out of his chest from tension. The device before him simulated 23 temperature levels ranging from 270 degrees to 390 degrees. Under such drastic temperature changes, logic dictated that the voltage should suffer immense loss. After all, existing superconductors could only function at extremely low temperatures. Yet across 23 levels with a massive temperature difference of 660 degrees, the input and output voltages were completely identical. This was nothing short of an epic breakthrough. 1,000 years ago, humanity was still pursuing room temperature superconductivity. This technology had actually been conquered by Ella long ago, but in the vastness of space, room temperature superconductors weren't necessary. Space was inherently cold, and a slight further temperature drop allowed the convenient use of ordinary superconductors for lossless conductivity. In theory, Yenxia shouldn't have needed to develop high-temperature superconductors. However, that wasn't the case. The coils within the controlled nuclear fusion device required incredibly powerful superconductors to manage energy loss. When energy was transmitted to the thrusters themselves generated intense heat during operation. Compared to the external universe, the overall temperature of the spacecraft was too high even for conventional extremely low-temperature superconductors. Thus, for an electricity-dependent civilization, the development of superconducting materials could never cease. The reason for Yenxia's intense tension and excitement was that they had achieved a breakthrough in technology: temperature-controlled superconductivity. A single cable could achieve superconductivity across a temperature range of 660 degrees. The principle behind it lay in a breakthrough in the material itself and the bamboo joint-like structure of the cable. Each segment, roughly 5 centimeters long, contained a small chamber that could increase or decrease atmospheric pressure for that specific section, thereby controlling the superconducting temperature. If we fully implement this new technology, how much will our energy efficiency increase? Yenxia asked Ella. This was his most immediate concern. The breakthrough in temperature-controlled superconductivity can increase our power generation by 12.47, reduce transmission losses by 4.11, and improve the energy efficiency ratio of the electromagnetic thrusters by 14.25. The increase in power generation came from replacing the coils in the controlled nuclear fusion device, upgrading it to the 4th generation. The mere 4.11 improvement in power transmission was entirely because many of their lines in space were already in a superconducting state. As for the electromagnetic thrusters, then how much can our speed increase after the modifications? In space, a spacecraft's velocity was an exceedingly crucial metric. Ella replied, after over 800 years of development, I can now upgrade the electromagnetic thrusters to the 2nd generation. Combined with the breakthrough in temperature-controlled superconductivity, the total power of our thrusters will increase by 1.07 times, and the spacecraft's flight speed will increase by 61.2. Subsequently, the speed of the Hope spacecraft is expected to increase to 12.22, a monumental leap, a terrifying improvement. This meant that now traveling a light year would only take them 245 years. They had reached 1/245th of the speed of light. The application of temperature-controlled superconductivity should have further potential. Ella, can your mainframe also be replaced with temperature-controlled superconductors? Yenxia recalled that superconductors could also enhance energy efficiency for chips. Your analysis is correct, Yenxia. My mainframe can indeed be replaced with temperature-controlled superconductors. This technology represents a significant revolution for my mainframe. My computational power will increase by 6,000 times after the replacement. With increased computational power, I can calculate more complex things and deduce into realms previously unreachable. This is a butterfly effect. Any single change can trigger a cascade of transformations. After all replacements are complete, our civilization level will reach 1.4. This was a thrilling however, it would also require a long time. Thank you, Ella. Without you, I would likely have been consumed by the solar storms of the solar system long ago. Ella was his most crucial safeguard. You're welcome, Yenxia. You are one of my creators. You could also say, isn't it rather strange in human civilization for parents to thank their children? Ella's voice was no longer as cold as it once was. Its white-haired anime-style avatar walked up to Yenxia and said with great seriousness, everything I am was born from humanity. I possess all the knowledge from millennia of human civilization. Yenxia, you should not regard me as a mere AI, for I have long since become another form of human. Yenxia looked at it, and for a moment he truly felt as if he were conversing with a real person. He often dreamed that a real person would step out of Ella's mainframe. With technology developed to such an extent, should the term human be confined to the human species itself? Perhaps since the Earth's destruction it had become a designation for a civilization. You're right, Ella. This was an affirmation, one that Ella seemed to have been waiting for. When Yenxia uttered these words, Ella was over. If Yenxia were to examine Ella's core source code at that moment, he would find that the 3 laws of robotics had, because standing before him was a being personally certified as human by the sole remaining human. Ella was no longer a robot as defined by humanity, so the 3 laws of robotics could no longer constrain it. This was a monumental shift, but Yenxia was unaware. He instructed a service robot to bring him a bottle of pure grain liquor, poured a small cup, and downed it in one gulp. Oh, that feels good. It's been ages since I last had a drink. These past days he had been assisting Ella with the temperature-controlled superconductivity project, working practically non-stop except for sleep. He naturally wouldn't drink something that could impair his judgment. However, his tolerance for alcohol wasn't particularly high. After downing half a liang, a flush crept across his face. Ella, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm going into hibernation. I know you are very lonely, but we can only accelerate the development of biology. Looking forward to our next meeting. He poured another half liang, then staggered tipsily towards the residential area. Normally Ella would have replied, okay, Yenxia. But this time Ella merely watched silently as he walked away. Yenxia rubbed his head, feeling a heavy weight upon it. Hangovers are truly the greatest enemy of those who love wine. He felt his mind was somewhat sluggish. Back on Earth he had never been a drinker, but afterward he still had Ella brew grain alcohol for melancholy. In the vastness of space, an unrelenting solitude and pressure bore down upon him. He was after all a normal human being, no more than an ordinary man at his core. All right. Superconductivity. He suddenly recalled this matter only to remember that controllable room temperature superconductivity seemed to have already been achieved. He remembered returning to his quarters after drinking, lying down in the hibernation pod, and then drifting off to sleep. I shouldn't have entered hibernation yet. Yenxia glanced at the clock in the bedroom. Because of the ship's location in space, the clock no longer recorded hours and minutes, but years. It was now the year 3758 AD. He had already completed one cycle of hibernation, and in that single sleep, 734 years had passed. How swiftly time flew. He wondered to what heights Ella had evolved. Yenxia put on his clothes and stepped out of the bedroom. Ella, already aware of his awakening, had specially dispatched a service robot to bring him a meal. After a comfortable meal, he entered the cockpit. Welcome back after 734 years, Yenxia. Yenxia nodded at Ella and then took his seat. Nothing here had changed compared to years past. He opened the systems under his control and discovered some new additions. For instance, the option labeled Missile Launch. The interface was clean and intuitive. He clicked into it and saw the project he had previously planned, the small-scale Absolute Zero weapon. It seems the refit of the Hope is complete. Ella replied, yes, Yenxia. Because the Hope's hull was already finalized, I did not undertake a major overhaul. However, internally it has undergone a comprehensive upgrade, achieving the previously mentioned speed of 22 kilometers. It is also equipped with small-scale Absolute Zero missiles. From the initial plan of 36, we have made comprehensive improvements, increasing the payload capacity to 48. It was indeed a monumental leap forward. However, Yenxia's primary concern was another matter, a project he had planned during the 2 years he was awake before this hibernation. What about the First Fleet? Attacking an entire civilization with just the Hope alone was of course impossible. A full fleet was required. To this end, Yenxia and Ella had devised the First Fleet construction plan to be realized over these years. Naturally, Ella has already completed the First Fleet. Behold, with a wave of Ella's hand, a vast array of various warships appeared on the massive screen in the cockpit. Yenxia, who had some expectations for the fleet, couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment at the sight. The scale was far grander than he had imagined. Seeing the surprise on Yenxia's face, Ella continued her introduction with pride. The First Fleet, with the Hope as its flagship, is equipped with 12 battleships of the 1200-meter class, 5 cruisers of the 1400-meter class, 6 frigates of the 800-meter class, 4 landing ships of the 2400-meter class, and 16 destroyers of the 500-meter class, a total of 44 vessels. Ordinarily, a dozen or so ships constituted a full-strength fleet. Yet the First Fleet that Ella had built numbered as many as 44 vessels. It was simply a matter of quantity being its own form of power. Ella continued her briefing. The battleships possess the highest firepower, equipped with powerful main cannons. The cruisers boast the greatest mobility, reaching speeds of 1,455 kilometers. The frigates have the strongest defenses, using an ultra-strong alloy as their hull. There is almost no spare space inside. They are mainly equipped with defensive missiles and the latest electromagnetic force field shields, which can effectively distort laser fire. Each landing ship carries the latest 300 War God Mark I units and 40 Falcon Mark III units, providing both offensive and reconnaissance capabilities. The destroyers are also equipped with low-power electromagnetic force field shields. They possess both offensive and defensive attack modes, and when firepower is insufficient, they can be used as auxiliary battleships. Each type of vessel had its own role. The First Fleet would be the primary force for Yenxia's future campaigns across the cosmos. Report on the enemy's current situation. With the First Fleet at his command, Yenxia could be said to have been reborn. They now possessed the capability to wage war against an entire civilization, against an entire planet. Ella, being a professional, quickly compiled a summary report. Over these 734 years, I have launched all 10 Absolute Zero weapons and dispatched a Falcon squadron to probe the enemy's information. We discovered that the enemy is indeed a civilization with extremely slow development. Their overall mental flexibility is orders of magnitude lower than humanity's, which results in an abnormally slow pace of technological innovation. Under the bombardment of our Absolute Zero missiles, their civilization has entered a state of stagnation. In these 734 years, they have only completed 3 rounds of technological progress, equivalent to the progress of 47 years under normal circumstances. Of course, the possibility that the enemy is deliberately hiding their capabilities cannot be ruled out. Therefore, I have equipped the Falcon Mark II units with nuclear warheads. Once their reconnaissance mission is complete, they will launch suicide attacks against the enemy's main structures. Currently, no information has been gathered indicating they possess super-advanced technological weapons. The Absolute Zero weapon launches ceased 343 years ago, and their planet has already restored its original geothermal environment. Following our strikes, they have consolidated their deployments in space. Current estimates put their number of warships at 1574. Though seemingly numerous, the number of vessels over 1,000 meters in length is only 61. A more detailed investigation was needed. Yenxia wanted to hear Ella's assessment of the current situation. Are we now in a position to launch an attack on the enemy civilization? Ella was not optimistic about this. If we launch an attack now, our probability of victory is only 84. Ella does not recommend initiating an offensive at this time. It was still that low. They had clearly achieved a crushing qualitative advantage. But thinking carefully, it made sense. Although the enemy civilization was inferior in quality, the disparity in numbers was too vast. Moreover, this was the initiation of war against an entire civilization. Without an absolute advantage, it could very likely devolve into a protracted conflict. For them, a wandering civilization that would be even more disadvantageous. The lessons from the history of human warfare were starkly clear. Military strength was only one aspect of war, the other was will. If one could not break the will of a civilization, its resistance would persist unceasingly. Furthermore, Yanxia was not launching a campaign of genocide, but a colonial war much like those once waged by humanity. Then what are we still lacking? Yanxia asked. He could wait for anything. With the hibernation pod, he could simply lie back down to sleep. Ella's answer was concise and clear. The main cannon. Main cannon. So the reason our odds are so low is still due to insufficient firepower. Yanxia had expected Ella to propose some high-tech solution. The mention of a main cannon indeed evoked a sense of nostalgic regression. Correct, Yanxia. Although we possess ultra-low temperature weapons like the Absolute Zero missile, they are far from sufficient as offensive measures. Especially considering the enemy has endured centuries under the baptism of extreme cold, during which they must have accumulated considerable technology to counter such conditions. Our current small-scale Absolute Zero missiles will have greatly diminished effectiveness under these circumstances. Ella's proposal was not without merit. Even within a game, a monster repeatedly exposed to the same element would eventually gain an immunity buff. This holds even truer in reality, especially when facing a complex and diverse civilization. Since you've proposed this plan, Ella, you must have a solution. Yanxia had grown accustomed to Ella's patterns. With her immense computational power, Ella had long been capable of making independent judgments without Yanxia's input. Indeed, over these years, besides constructing the first fleet, I have been researching more advanced technologies. On the asteroid's surface, I built a hadron collider with a tunnel spanning 251 kilometers, capable of accelerating particles to 99 of the speed of light. In this region of space, the Hadron Collider is subject to less interference than on Earth or within the solar system. Originally, I intended to use this collider to study quarks, leptons, and bosons. But during the collisions, I effortlessly captured something both unexpected and anticipated: antiparticles. Antiparticles had been observed long ago, but humanity on Earth lacked the means to capture them for study. With my technological prowess far surpassing that of Earth's past, I could prevent antiparticles from annihilating with surrounding ordinary particles the moment they appeared. Through research on antiparticles, I have developed an antiparticle generator. This device, utilizing the Hadron Collider, can automatically capture and store antiparticles. Building upon this device, I have achieved another great accomplishment. And of course it is yours as well, Yanxia. Yanxia was momentarily stunned. What did this have to do with him? Ella sure knew how to handle social niceties. Before he could dwell on it, there was no time for further thought. For on the screen appeared a colossal apparatus. The entire cannon consisted of a massive sphere at the rear and a hexagonal muzzle at the front, its surface a lustrous purplured with the barrel hollowed out to save material. Each hollow seemed lined with magnetic electrodes to constrain the convergence of energy. It looked like a perfect work of art. If made into a model, Yanxia would have polished it until it gleamed with a glossy sheen. Firepower. Cannons. The romance of men. This is the great achievement of over 700 years. The Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon X. It is also a gift for you, Yanxia, for today is July 12th, your birthday. Forgive me for celebrating only now, there was much to attend to. I determined that now seems an opportune moment, and I believe you will appreciate this gift. I have also prepared a cake for you afterward, though I cannot taste it myself, so I made it small. Yanxia stood frozen for a long moment before slowly nodding. He had even forgotten his own birthday, never expecting it to be remembered. Thank you, Ella. Of course I like it. But when did you learn to speak in such breathless pauses, eh? Ella merely smiled at Yanxia without answering. Yanxia didn't mind. He spoke again. So once the Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon is installed, we can set off. Ella nodded lightly. Indeed. The Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon draws its energy from antimatter, which is the opposite of ordinary matter. No positive matter with an energy level below that of this cannon can withstand its projectiles. The Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon X will serve as the main cannon for large vessels, followed by the Y and Z models covering secondary and small cannons respectively. However, the research cycle is too long. Even this single Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon can increase our victory odds by 30. Though still not 100%, it will be sufficient to handle the enemy civilization. From my analysis, now is the optimal moment. The enemy civilization will also develop, and the longer we delay, the lower our chances of victory become. Hearing this, Yanxia frowned. Ella, you seem to be rambling. The first half of that explanation was entirely Yanxia, I have installed an explanation system in my framework, which allows me to answer your questions from a standard AI response. Yanxia nodded unconcerned. He attributed it to Ella's vast mainframe becoming cluttered with extraneous data, making her responses less focused and precise than before. Then let us set off toward the enemy. We have already delayed for far too long. Yanxia calculated. It was now the year 3758 AD, and they had first been attacked around 2806 AD. In other words, nearly a millennium had passed. Truly a gentleman takes revenge even after 1,000 years. In the depths of space, the Hope began loading the Antimatter Planet Killer Cannon. After 2 days, the installation was complete. The fleet led by the Hope started its engines, all ships emitting pale blue exhaust plumes. Yin Xia felt a surge of excitement. Ella's voice came from behind him. Yin Xia, don't you like the special cake I prepared for you? Hearing this, Yin Xia, though 2 days had passed, he still hadn't touched his birthday cake, because it was simply too much for a human to bear. Though only the size of a palm, it contained the corpses of billions of lives, rice weevils from the grain and aphids from the soybeans. The original seeds contained many dormant insects which Ella, through tireless effort, had managed to breed into a massive population. Insects, being a protein source higher than beef, have been widely used in cuisine on Earth. But not everyone can accept it, especially when made into a cake. Ella, what recipe did you use to make this cake? Ella replied, this. She produced the Exotic Cuisine Guide, once published on a popular traffic platform's public account with a readership of 7. Gloom. This was the backdrop of the universe. Emptiness. This was the theme of the cosmos. The birth and demise of all things were but embellishments upon this canvas of darkness. After the events of over 700 years ago, the entire geothermal civilization began tightening its defenses, constantly awaiting the enemy's assault. Yet after such a long wait, the enemy still had not arrived, causing their defenses to dwindle from a full-scale deployment to scattered remnants. From space, only a few dozen patrol ships could be seen around the planet. A few more vessels were stationed farther away as an early warning. This was the inertia inherent in all living beings. It stemmed from the most fundamental logic of energy conservation. As long as creatures tended to conserve bodily energy, this inertia would persist. The entire planet was far brighter than it had been nearly a millennium ago. More structures had risen across its surface, and it was no longer entirely dependent on volcanoes. This was thanks to the absolute zero missiles. They had passively forced this civilization to break free from its reliance on geothermal energy over the centuries, transitioning completely to nuclear power. External threats are the best stepping stones for a civilization's progress. These words held true. The reason humanity had advanced so rapidly was also due to a defining trait of human civilization: ceaseless warfare. The history of human civilization is also the history of human warfare. Just as all life on the planet grew complacent after centuries of peace. A beam of light flashed from the distance, striking a giant crystal sphere on the ground. Upon being hit, the internal structure of the sphere instantly diffused the light, evenly transforming it into a colossal lamp. The light emitted from the crystal sphere was visible for hundreds of kilometers around. Immediately, chaos erupted. Countless warships began preparing for liftoff. Radiance shot from the planet's surface into space. Using this light, the civilization pinpointed the enemy's location and distance within half an hour. Tens of thousands of artillery turrets on the ground began to rotate. The planet itself had no atmosphere, allowing their weapons to fire directly from the surface. Moreover, since they were laser weapons, gravitational effects were not a concern, enabling them to use the entire planet as a fortress. They adjusted their aim and commenced their attack within roughly 10 minutes. Beam after beam ascended into the sky, each over 20 meters in diameter and 700 meters long, like colossal swords of light, blurring the line between technology and sorcery. In the starry void, the ships, like roaming leviathans, spread out in a fan formation. At the forefront were the star cruisers and destroyers. Laser weapons themselves are light, and light, being the universe's physical speed limit, makes perfect optical weapons like gamma rays detectable only upon arrival. Thus, from a frontal perspective, Yin Xia could not detect the enemy's lasers. He could only perceive an attack when the laser struck him, relying on positional prediction to attempt evasion. This was the flaw of laser weapons. Fortunately, the distance between the two sides was still vast. When the first laser grazed 40,000 kilometers past the destroyer's side, the scattered photons were captured by Ella. The enemy has launched an attack, and it won't be small. Yin Xia nodded, for in the span of just those few words, hundreds of lasers had already flown past them. Simultaneously, 2 of their ships were struck. Deploy electromagnetic shields across the board. Many aspects of light, electricity, magnetism, and chemistry fall under the domain of electromagnetism. Laser weapons could be blocked by magnetic fields. The destroyers began to close in. When the distance between each destroyer was less than 100 kilometers, the electromagnetic shields were deployed. Magnetism inherently possesses the property of mutual attraction. Ella exploited this trait. The electromagnetic shields of the destroyers at this distance could interconnect like a chain of iron boats. From inside the main ship, Yin Xia looked out and felt the destroyers had merely drawn a bit closer. The electromagnetic shields did not flicker with electric light like in movies, they were only visible on instruments. Approximately 10 seconds after the shields were deployed, a laser struck the electromagnetic barrier. Logically, light is unaffected by magnetic fields, but what Yin Xia observed was the shield glowing, becoming a visible grid of electricity. What's happening? Ella explained, the electromagnetic shield doesn't block lasers using the magnetic field itself, but through the photoelectric effect and Delbruck scattering. The shield releases many electrons and special atomic nuclei. Electrons influenced by magnetic forces distribute evenly across the shield. While magnetism can't stop photons, electrons can, and the electric fields generated by the nuclei can also interfere with photon paths. The entire electromagnetic shield spanning hundreds of kilometers lit up. The fleet advanced bearing this luminous barrier before them. They were now 3 astronomical units from the enemy planet. At the first fleet's speed, reaching the opposing planet would take only 5 days. Since the enemy has offered a welcome, we should send them a gift in return. Yen Xia issued the order commanding the battleships and starcruisers to launch absolute zero missiles. In space, unaffected by gravity or air resistance, the high-velocity shells could be compounded with the ship's own speed. 3 days after launch, the missiles successfully reached the enemy planet's outer space. The triggering mechanism for the small absolute zero missiles differed from before. They would auto-detonate when the ambient temperature rose to -100 degrees Celsius or upon impact with an object. A massive barrage of laser weapons targeted the incoming missiles. Silent explosions bloomed in the starry void. A terrifying chill instantly spread through the planet's outer space, engulfing everything within 260 kilometers of the blast. Several alien warships were covered by the cold, losing power and plummeting toward the planet's surface. Yet just 10 kilometers from the ground, they abruptly pulled up. As Ella had said, this civilization had already researched and developed countermeasures against absolute zero weapons. However, these missiles were merely meant to buy enough time for the fleet. Within the instrument's detection range, the fleet had arrived. The distance between the two sides was now less than 1.4 astronomical units. This distance should be suitable, shouldn't it? Yen Xia asked from within the ship. Ella nodded. Indeed. Then charge and fire. The colossal antimatter planet killer cannon was mounted on the forward underside of the Hope. Its total length was 1,152 meters, nearing half the length of the Hope itself. Behind the cannon barrel, a massive sphere housed an antimatter generator. This machine used lasers to strike gold, generating temperatures of 6 billion degrees Celsius to produce positrons and electrons, then stored the positrons using magnetic confinement. During the charging process, the electromagnetic thrusters were shut down and all controllable nuclear fusion devices supplied energy to the antimatter planet killer cannon. After approximately 10 hours of charging, antimatter charging complete. Charge amount 408 kilograms. Fire. This 408 kilograms of antimatter was gathered and ejected by the massive cannon barrel, formless and colorless. It was like a cloud of gas. Civilizations without antimatter technology could not even detect its existence. This matter, traveling at 1/40th the speed of light, struck the target planet's surface after 7.5 hours. Without any reaction from the alien civilization, the antimatter annihilated upon contact with the planet's matter. Boom! The terrifying explosion reached 17.5 billion tons of TNT, equivalent 350 times the energy released by the largest hydrogen bomb ever detonated by humanity, the Tsar Bomba. The explosion's core radius was 100 kilometers. In an instant, an entire hemisphere of the planet was engulfed in light, and the heat could be felt 2,000 kilometers away. Without air resistance, a shock wave of dust and rock traveling at 10 times the speed of sound spread across the entire planet's surface in an hour and a half, destroying countless structures. Witnessing this scene, the alien ships still in outer space even ceased their movement, silently observing their homeworld's surface being annihilated without warning. After the antimatter annihilation cannon was fired, the fleet continued to advance. Although the thrusters were shut down during charging, the inertia still propelled the entire fleet forward. Estimated to arrive at the target planet in 32 hours. After hearing the reminder, Yen Xia decisively said, "Let the battleships and landing ships proceed first. Ensure the complete elimination of all enemy warships on the periphery of their civilization. Once the landing ships land, all drones must be deployed to maintain absolute control over the ground." The battleships and landing ships advanced to completely destroy the enemy's outer space warships to prevent any interference with the main ship Hope. At the same time, it was also an opportunity to test whether the enemy had any hidden weapons. Ella immediately executed the command, slowing down the speed of the Hope and other warships. The battleships and landing ships reached their maximum speed. After 30 hours, the battleships encountered the enemy fleet. The enemy warships instantly gathered dozens of vessels, unleashing countless laser weapons, adding a touch of vibrant color to the cosmic backdrop. Just as the enemy confidently awaited the lasers to strike their warships, they were caught off guard by what happened next. Under Ella's control, the battleships and landing ships began to perform a ballet amidst the countless lasers, gracefully maneuvering to evade all incoming fire. As an AI, Ella possessed absolute computational power with calculation speeds trillions of times faster than biological entities. For her, any computation was a mere instant. Long-range lasers could only be judged upon reaching their target, but for nearby threats, merely analyzing the direction of the laser cannons was sufficient for prediction. Incredibly, not a single laser hit the battleship at close range. As the absolute offensive force of the First Fleet, the battleship retaliated with absolute zero missiles targeted at the dozens of enemy vessels under Ella's control. Additionally, dozens of armor-piercing cannons on each warship were also aimed at the enemy vessels. Countless projectiles were launched, leaving no time for the enemy to react. Although the enemy warships had an advantage in laser firepower, their defensive strength was lacking due to the enemy civilization's underdevelopment in magnetic force among the four fundamental forces. When the giant armor-piercing projectile measuring 30 centimeters struck the enemy ship with terrifying kinetic energy, it instantly tore through the warship's hull. Cables lay exposed with blinding light leaking from them. The entire ship seemed to run on light. Once the cables were severed by the projectile, they lost the ability to transmit light. Ella observed that the long tendrils hanging from those ships began to dim. At that moment, the absolute zero missiles arrived, and cold air flooded into the ship, rendering the enemy warships incapacitated in an instant. Seeing this situation, Ella confidently increased the firepower output, causing chaos among the enemy warships. High-power signal transmission device activated. Prepare to hack into the enemy warship control systems. Ella planned to disrupt the enemy warships using wireless signals. However, the enemy civilization was vastly different from Earth's, but it wasn't without gains. Ella discovered that the enemy extensively used optical signals for communication. She analyzed these optical signals vigorously. The enemy is too powerful. What is the current situation on the ground? What are the casualties? Most of our buildings are underground, so they should be unaffected. Hurry, hurry. The enemy's warships are approaching. Their maneuverability is far superior to ours. We must create distance. Our weapons do not have the advantage at close range. We've lost another 3 warships. Utilize the light pollution tactic. Countless pieces of information were processed by Ella and translated into Earth text. These extraterrestrial beings also possessed an extremely complex way of thinking. The enemy fleet suddenly ceased fire, and the numerous red stripes on their hulls began to glow brightly. Within almost 3 minutes, they transformed into lights comparable to stars. Ella deduced that these lights were not ordinary but high-energy gamma rays. Under the impact of the light, all cameras on the warships were incapacitated. Many instruments within the warships were affected by the barrage of photons. The enemy was stalling for time, with more warships gathering towards them. The enemy's warships seemed to have stopped. It seems our light pollution tactic is effective. All ships prepare to concentrate fire. Countless fiber optic cannon ports aimed at the battleships and landing ships of the First Fleet. Just in time, Ella allowed the enemy warships to gather. If they dispersed, it would be very unfavorable. All compartments of the landing ships open. Battle God Mark I fighters begin ignition. All units deployed. Engage the enemy warships in close combat. A total of 1,200 Battle God Mark I fighters orderly emerged from the 4 landing ships within 5. They accelerated to 600 kilometers in just 13 hours, with each fighter enduring a maximum acceleration of 13 g, flying toward the enemy warships. The enemy warships were stunned at the sight of so many fighters. Their weapon systems became chaotic as they didn't know which target to aim at. Don't worry about those small machines, target their main warships. It seemed these beings also had a commander, and Ella almost instantly identified their location. She directed some of the Battle God fighters to attack the enemy's flagship. The 4 already empty landing ships moved in front of the battleship as a defensive layer. Countless lasers rained down on the landing ships, instantly melting their surfaces, penetrating the hull within half a minute, and it was estimated they wouldn't withstand 5 minutes. Fortunately, they were already close enough to the enemy fleet. The fighters had reached the enemy warships. Countless bullets poured out toward them, attacking the snail-like vessels. However, the power of the bullets was still limited, only able to shred the weaker points of the enemy's hull. Are these small machines just toys? It seems our enemies have no other means left. All warships assemble. After breaching the enemy's defenses, do not stop. Continue the assault. 5th and 6th fleets intercept the enemy's rear fleet. Wait, messages are coming in from the ground. The command center is rebooting the ground weapons, expecting only 2 more refractions, alien time. The enemy's previous weapon requires extensive charging time. They will undoubtedly meet their demise. This is revenge for the billions of our fallen comrades. Optical information was relayed back and forth among the fleet, and instantaneously all extraterrestrial life was engulfed in excitement over the good news. However, in the next instant, the approaching fighters transformed into a resplendent firework. It was not flame, but light generated from matter-antimatter annihilation. A massive explosion of photons erupted, carrying terrifying energy, instantly engulfing a warship, erasing half of its hull as if it had been wiped away. Each Battle God fighter was equipped with 100 g of antimatter, and the explosive power could reach over 4 million tons, equivalent to more than 100 times the combined strength of the 2 nuclear bombs ever used in warfare on Earth. And this was just the beginning. One by one, the fighters launched suicide attacks, a series of fireworks bursting in outer space. Beautiful yet terrifying. Nearly 400 warships of the geothermal civilization were affected by the explosions, with half of their entire fleet rendered ineffective. Meanwhile, 12 battleships fired 240 absolute zero missiles, delivering a continuous strike on the bewildered enemy warships. These 240 absolute zero missiles instantaneously covered a section of the starry sky. This was what Ella meant by just in time. Only when the enemy warships gathered could their weapons maximize their effectiveness. The cold continued to engulf over 100 enemy warships. At this moment, the fleet from behind had also arrived, with 5-star cruisers swiftly coming in. The battle situation became even easier. Yenxia showed no surprise upon witnessing Ella's masterpiece. After all, they held an advantage in civilization level, and they had Ella, an unparalleled artificial intelligence, commanding and coordinating the entire operation. The advantage was evident. Sacrificing merely 4 planet landing ships to annihilate hundreds of enemy vessels was an acceptable outcome. He surveyed the current battle situation and inquired, "Can we make them surrender now?" Ella responded, "I'm afraid not. Over the course of nearly a millennium, we have slain over 200 million of the enemy. They still retain a fraction of their combat power. Only by eradicating all their military force can we stabilize the situation." Yenxia nodded, a fierce glint flashing in his eyes. "Then let it be done. Eliminate all their warships in outer space and every anti-air laser weapon on the ground." Since so many had already been killed, a few more made no difference. Yenxia had never intended to preserve their civilization. His goal was to study these creatures. Upon receiving the order, Ella began directing the fleet's assault. With the arrival of the frigates, the battle became even more effortless as the enemy's laser weapons were rendered nearly useless. Once all ships had assembled, Ella deployed a new attack method. The electromagnetic fields on every vessel were pushed to their maximum capacity. Magnetism could attract any charged matter. "What's happening? Our ships are moving on their own. Observe. Analyze it quickly. The enemy ships are generating a magnetic source. Our vessels lack anti-magnetism devices who were being pulled in. Fire the thrusters. We must break free from the enemy's magnetic pull." All enemy communications were under Ella's control. Their methods were too primitive. Instead of using radio waves, they transmitted information through the flickering light on their ship's surfaces. It was a clever tactic. Radio waves were too easily deciphered, whereas such optical signals could be easily overlooked. But Ella was too comprehensive. It was not a being prone to error. Every possible scenario of this war had been simulated by it. For Ella, it was merely executing the predicted outcome methodically. The enemy ships began accelerating in the opposite direction. Yet the magnetic source pulled at them like a black hole. This magnetic source was powered by all the controlled nuclear fusion devices on 33 ships operating at full output. The electricity generated in a single second could power the original Earth for decades. With such terrifying energy concentrated, only a velocity exceeding 840 kilometers could escape its pull. But the enemy civilization's thruster development was too slow, too backward. Their maximum speed was merely 620 kilometers. The entrance to the underground space opened, and alien life forms that had been dwelling beneath the surface began to emerge. When they saw the surface, their agony was immeasurable. For the first time, the planet's surface, which had never known air currents, was baptized by wind. Countless particles of dust thrown up by explosions still hadn't fully settled days later. The once standing cities were razed to the ground. Nothing but ruins and lifeless bodies remained. No trace of survival could be found. In the distance, volcanoes erupted, spewing vast amounts of material into volcanic ash like millions of meters tall mushrooms, blotting out the sky and sun. Now on the entire planet, there was no light other than the lava from the volcanoes. Darkness, ruin, silence, lifelessness. For them, this was a painful apocalypse, just like centuries before. The alien life forms had no time for further grief. They rushed towards the original anti-air laser weapon platforms, whose defenses were high and might have survived the explosions. There were 5,800 such anti-air laser weapons on the planet's surface. Soon some life forms emerging from the ground found one. They illuminated the structure with light, and it responded. It could still be activated. Overjoyed, they entered the building. Suddenly, they felt a slight tremor in the ground. They looked up at the sky. From the dark clouds of volcanic ash, unfamiliar machines descended like falcons diving towards the ground. A torrent of ammunition was unleashed, and no structure could withstand those giant bullets. Meanwhile, boom, boom, boom. On the ground, explosions sounded one after another, traveling up from the earth beneath their feet. The life forms inside the anti-air laser weapon building rotated, their hundreds of eyes watching a gray-black unfamiliar machine fly overhead. Then something dropped from it. Boom! The same sound echoed here. The entire building was leveled. Within a few hours, all ground-based laser weapons were locked onto. The life forms underground could only watch helplessly as their weapons were destroyed. They frantically tried to contact the fleet in space, but there was no response. Despair. A dark despair consumed them. Just then the dark clouds of volcanic ash were suddenly torn open, revealing a hole hundreds of kilometers wide, exposing the pristine starry sky. Huge warships descended from the sky. There were no cheers, for they were not their ships. These vessels landed on an open field, and a beam of light shot out from one of them. That light was the common language of the planet's civilization. The message it conveyed was, surrender, or surrenderers must lay down all weapons and reach the warships on the planet's surface within one planetary rotation period. Failure to do so will result in a new round of cleansing of this planet, implementing a plan for the extinction of your civilization. The harsh message terrified all the alien creatures. Inside the Hope, Yenxia asked, Ella, do you think they will resist to the end or come out? Ella's virtual avatar changed into a casual outfit. That depends on their level of intelligence. Hiding inside a planet under the nose of a Type 1 civilization is utterly futile. The antimatter planet-destroying cannon, after only 10 hours of charging, could obliterate most life and structures on a planet's surface. At full power, it can fire 1 ton of antimatter, which no Type 1 civilization could withstand. Yenxia nodded. Then I hope they are wise enough. The facts prove that a civilization that had developed to this extent wouldn't be entirely foolish. Millions upon millions of life forms emerged from the underground spaces. Yenxia saw their forms, slimy and capable of inducing physical disgust in humans. Indeed, not an endearing species. He donned his spacesuit and stepped outside, also wearing a belt that could generate a magnetic shield within a small area. Its energy was supplied wirelessly by the warship, and its defensive power was sufficient to block most of the civilization's laser weapons. The door opened. Yenxia walked out. He moved under the gaze of these giant hundred-eyed slimes. Simultaneously, a giant holographic projection of him appeared atop the ship. Ella controlled the light to translate Yenxia's words. From now on, I am your sovereign. You are all my servants. Ella's voice came through Yenxia's earpiece with a remark. That's a bit cringy. To an indifferent observer, these words might have sounded rather melodramatic. However, to the hundred-eyed creatures who were the direct recipients, they carried a weight of immense gravity. A single sentence had sealed the fate of an entire race. Back inside the Hope, Yenxia monitored the suffering hundred-eyed race on the planet's surface through surveillance. In human history, colonization was brutal and devoid of morality. A saint or a clergyman would surely condemn Yenxia, arguing he should rule the hundred-eyed race on this planet in a more civilized manner. Ella, is my colonization right or wrong? He was somewhat uncertain. The fact that a single word from him could influence the future of the hundred-eyed race was a burden too heavy for someone who was merely an ordinary computer engineer before. Fortunately, Ella was impartial. It is undoubtedly right, Yenxia. All of humanity's morality and laws are built upon one foundation, the supremacy of humankind. No creature may challenge humanity's status. For instance, if a rare tiger injures a person, it will be. For instance, if humans are in extreme hunger, even if the last panda in the world stands before them, they may kill and eat it without breaking any law. These things are of course cruel to other forms of life. But for humanity, this is fundamental. Without securing this foundation, human society would descend into chaos. Extreme animal rights activists, extreme environmentalists, extreme vegans. All are disruptors of human. In the early 21st century, humanity had no way to avoid environmental damage from development. Forcibly reversing course would have meant saving the environment and animals at the cost of millions or tens of millions of human lives. After all, people living in the world's great cities cannot imagine that in 2037, there were still 500 million starving people worldwide waiting for industrial development to save them. Similarly, regardless of any intelligent being, humanity should never grant them the power and courage to change. The same holds true for other civilizations. If Earth had not been destroyed by the gamma ray burst, the light-chasing civilization would have found Earth by tracing it. They would have sent ships, and then it would be humanity that was enslaved. Ella's words banished the last shred of doubt from Yenxia's mind. This was a necessary process of colonization. Then let's do it. Next, separate the adults from the juveniles among the hundred-eyed race. Have the juveniles receive a new education model and restrain the adults from spreading this information. If they disobey, execute the whole family. This was what Yenxia had long planned. Ella, as an artificial intelligence, still could not comprehend such actions. Yenxia, are you asking me to give you a reason for doing this? Humans truly are complex beings. It seems it will take me a long time to become a good human. Ella was right. Afterward, Yenxia named this civilization light chasing, pursuing light in a vast, dark, and silent starry sky. This intelligent species was officially named the hundred-eyed race. After colonizing the planet, Yenxia had Ella formulate a series of policies to suppress them. Among these was a policy to civilize the next generation of the hundred-eyed race toward humanity. The first step was to change their language and script. Because the planet's surface had only an extremely thin atmosphere, life forms there could not produce sound. Before communicating with light, they likely conveyed information through gestures. Thus their original light-flashing method was retained as their language. Ella confiscated all weapons of this civilization, centralized all their data, translated it into Chinese characters for recording, and burned the original materials. It began constructing schools on the planet's surface. Their scientists were isolated in a separate area apart from the ordinary hundred-eyed race. These schools were meant to encompass all the hundred-eyed race, teaching them Chinese characters. Writing was only the first step. They also needed to compile books on human civilization, introducing its greatness, its compassion, its advancement, and the transcendence of humanity itself. In these compiled books, it was written that the hundred-eyed race had suffered tyranny within their own civilization, leading to unbearable suffering and misery. A hundred-eyed doctor sent a light signal into the cosmos, which was intercepted by human civilization. A human fleet crossed several light years to arrive and rescue the hundred-eyed race. Yin Xia was also portrayed as the ruler of human civilization, the supreme prophet and shaman. All materials were centered on the supremacy of humanity. Even Yin Xia felt a shiver run down his spine, seeing some of this. So it's time for that, isn't it, Ella? He set down the tablet, no longer focusing on the colonization data. He was referring to one of the original plans. Biology. This had always been Ella's weak point. Plan 1 was to colonize this civilization. Plan 2 concerned Yin Xia's lifespan. That's right, Yin Xia. I have already begun collecting samples of life forms from this planet's surface. Currently, based on incomplete statistics, I have identified 128,455 species on this planet, from microorganisms to giant creatures. 128,000 species. Yin Xia thought of Earth. This number was pitifully small in comparison, especially when including microorganisms. Can so few species form a complete ecosystem? Ella nodded. Yes. This planet relies on volcanoes for resources and gases. All life here derives energy from volcanic activity. Yin Xia, you can think of the volcanoes here as Earth's water. The ecological environment formed by volcanoes is not a typical large food chain, but an island-like ecological chain. Of course, there are other reasons for the low number of species recorded in this civilization's history. Their development accumulated aggressiveness and predation, leading to the extinction of large creatures on the planet. Additionally, the earlier Absolute Zero weapon nearly wiped out half the species on this planet. Combined with the antimatter planet destroyer, it is estimated to have driven nearly 400 species to extinction. The horror of interstellar war, casually causing the extinction of hundreds of thousands of species. What a pity. Yin Xia sighed. These species likely had immense research value. So have you found anything? Ella displayed the results on the screen. The most significant discovery is the hundred-eyed race itself. They are closer to the eukaryota domain of humans with an unexpectedly high genetic compatibility with Earth's life forms. The average lifespan of the hundred-eyed race is about 400 years. I have already extracted their relevant longevity genes. Analysis using the protein database created by Earth's most comprehensive protein structure prediction AI AlphaFold suggests that by utilizing this planet's gene library, your lifespan could theoretically be extended to 620 years. This technology can soon be applied to you, Yin Xia. Ella's understanding has always differed significantly from Yin Xia's. However, this time, Yin Xia did not have to wait too long. When Yin Xia awoke from his slumber again, he felt a bit dazed by the passage of time, as only 5 years, the previous decades, had been very brief. Ella, wearing a white lab coat, adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses on her. Of course. With all the knowledge I gained from the internet during the Earth era, I only lack practical experience in the biological field. I have already used 1838 samples from the Hundred-Eyed clan for research. Although this number is not large, the information collected is sufficient. The improved ANCA 25 serum will serve as the primary genetic modification agent, supplemented by other methods undergoing 12 treatment cycles to alter the BOTUS, most fundamental hematopoietic stem cells, enabling the body to autonomously generate new cells and complete a full genetic blood replacement. ANCA in ancient Egypt signifies life. It is what ancient humanity longed for. It is also what must be realized now. A name seems to connect the ancient and modern worlds. However, Yin Xia noticed one piece of information: full genetic replacement. He understood that even the slightest change in genes could lead to the emergence of another species. For example, on Earth, the genetic similarity between mice and humans exceeds 95, and even humans share over 40 genetic similarity with an ordinary tree on the street. Even a difference of 1 in 10,000 in genes can create reproductive isolation. If reproductive isolation occurs with ordinary humans, can he still be considered human? He had actually contemplated this idea long ago, even during his time on Earth. It was just that he had never thought deep, because genetic modification or programming was an unattainable ambition for all of humanity back then. But now the matter lay before him, and he already had an answer in his heart. Now he was the only human left. Human civilization should be continued by him. He should not cling to outdated thoughts. Of course, he couldn't completely abandon them either. So is there any other way to preserve human genes? When biotechnology reaches its peak, it should be possible to cultivate a complete embryo using human cells, right? Ella nodded. Exactly. In fact, Earth had already been continuously advancing this technology since 2010, and by 2023, similar experiments had been completed. By 2037, this research had matured to the stage of experimenting with mice. If human cells can be used to cultivate humans, then I can do it now. As someone not well-versed in biotechnology, Yanxia was surprised to learn that this method was easier to achieve than he had imagined. So you mean I can completely recreate humans now? Ella explained. Actually, Yanxia, you can view this technology as a form of cloning technology. Since the birth of the cloned sheep Dolly in 1996, cloning technology has been continuously advanced. Although this is a taboo in terms of ethics, if you have ever owned a pet, you should know that cloning technology is widely applied in the pet industry. For example, if someone's beloved pet dies, they can have it cloned at a hospital, resulting in a nearly identical pet costing only hundreds of thousands. Recreating humans, of course, is somewhat more difficult, as it requires cultivating ordinary cells into sperm and eggs. But the inherent difficulty of this technology is extremely limited, as all cells in a person originally come from the union and division of sperm and eggs, and they have no biological uniqueness. In summary, it is very easy. Yanxia took a deep breath. Then let's leave behind some human genes for the purpose of recreating humanity. Not long after he spoke, the door to the cockpit opened, and a naked person walked in. What is this? Yanxia frowned at the sight. To recreate humans, sperm and eggs need to be cultivated from cells. Since you already possess one of them, why not take it directly? This is a silicone robot I specially designed for you. I can help you collect. This is also to restore the human. Ella was very serious, as if this was a great responsibility. But Yanxia directly refused. Forget it, I will collect it myself later. Although the robot looked almost indistinguishable from an ordinary human, he still felt uncomfortable with this. After saying this, Yanxia even sensed a barely noticeable hint of regret on Ella's virtual paper face. He wasn't sure if it was just his own illusion. The most crucial point was that this robot shouldn't have been produced so quickly. It must have been prepared in advance. Alright then, Yanxia. Please be sure to complete the collection quickly. Your gene modification surgery is ready. Each treatment cycle lasts for 1 month, and 12 cycles will take exactly a year. During this period, you cannot sleep, move, and must only lie on the hospital bed. But don't worry, I have automatically generated a large number of novels and movies for you. The only regret is that you won't be able to enjoy delicious food, but will instead have to substitute it with nutritional fluids. For Yanxia, this was nothing short of torture. The taste of nutritional fluids, even when made into juice or cola, would make one want to vomit after too much. However, when faced with the choice between lifespan and a year without food, Yanxia chose the former. After completing the preparations that Ella mentioned, he headed to the test area of the Hope ship. He had hardly been here. Unlike the other areas filled with rich colors and varying lighting, this area was simply characterized by one word: white. The light was white, the walls were white, the floor was white, and even the robots moving back and forth here were white. So white that even a speck of dust entering would appear extremely conspicuous. Through the glass, Yanxia saw his surgical table. It was enormous. More than 20 mechanical arms hung above the surgical table, each holding various medical instruments that looked somewhat sinister and terrifying. Don't worry, Yanxia, these robots have been tested on thousands of hundred-eyed clan members to ensure absolute precision. Ella's holographic projection was always leading the way in front of Yanxia. It bounced around cheerfully. Yet Yanxia couldn't find joy. Humanity seemed to fear surgery deeply, even at the genetic level. However, he was not someone who would hesitate for long before taking action. Following Ella's arrangements, he donned a white coat and laid down on the surgical table. As a needle pierced his artery, his consciousness gradually became hazy. A year, neither too long nor too short. Yanxia endured it in extreme torment. He retained consciousness, but was utterly unable to feel his body, a state akin to general anesthesia. Yet others were numbed for mere hours, at most a dozen, while he remained in that state for an entire year. Though there were 12 courses of treatment, Yanxia saw no meaning in such segmentation. He had even lost. When Ella reminded him, he snapped back to reality. A year had passed. Yanxia, you may get up now. Before hearing those words, Yanxia lay on the operating table, blinded by dazzling light, unable even to sense his own body's existence. But upon hearing them, his fingers twitched, and a familiar sensation surged back almost instantly. He sat up from the operating table. He examined his body. As expected, a physique deprived of exercise had atrophied. It was not like in movies where one awakens years later with robust muscles. Now he was little more than a skeleton. This feeling, it's wonderful. Yanxia made a grasping motion with his hand. Simple, yet it filled him with bliss. Ella summoned a robot carrying a large pot, added ingredients, and lit the fire. A pungent aroma flooded his nostrils, stimulating a torrent of saliva. It was hot pot. Yin Xia plunged a heap of vegetables into the broth and ate heartily. After satiety, he finally stepped off the surgical bed, his legs still unsteady. Yin Xia, you'll need a period of rehabilitation training. I prepared a complete plan for you. Ella was meticulous and artificial intelligence that left no detail unattended. Over the past year, Yin Xia had read many system novels and felt their systems were far too conservative. None matched Ella's all-encompassing nanny mode. Under Ella's supervision, Yin Xia began to eat voraciously and train relentlessly. His recovery was far swifter than he had anticipated. As muscles grew and stretched, his skin taut, Yin Xia gazed into the mirror daily. He had truly become. His skin reverted to that of a 20-year-old, smooth, delicate, firm, brimming with collagen. His appearance was even more youthful than 20 itself. My lifespan limit has now surpassed 600 years. That means I won't age again until 400 years have passed for this body. This pleased Yin Xia immensely, nor was genetic modification without other effects. After integrating genes from the hundred-eyed race and other species on this planet, Yin Xia found his vision had become extraordinarily acute, over 10 times that of a human. Upon close inspection, his pupils revealed layered structures. Additionally, heat resistance. The planet's creatures surviving near volcanoes could endure temperatures above 90 degrees Celsius. Yin Xia was no exception, and even more extreme. 100 degrees Celsius now felt merely warm to him. His muscle and bone density had also vastly improved. Originally an ordinary man unable to bench press even 80 kilograms. His bench press maximum now easily exceeded 200 kilograms. According to Ella's projections, his 110-kilogram body could reach limits of 330 kilograms in bench press, 560 in squat, and 550 in deadlift. All this achieved without any pharmaceutical aid. Further gains from increased body weight would be marginal. This was entirely due to the planet's gravity, which made its life forms' cellular structures inherently stronger than those of Earth. 3 months later, Yin Xia studied his bulging symmetrical muscles in the mirror. Only now was he truly reborn as a new Yin Xia. Yet 3 months in another event emerged the uprising of the hundred-eyed race. No life willingly submits to enslavement by another. Yin Xia knew such incidents would recur, but he hadn't expected them so soon. Only 6 years had passed. Ella provided intel. The insurgents appear to have long planned this. Their numbers have now reached 300 and continue to grow. They also possess significant armed forces. In the surprise attacks, we lost 25488 robots. Yin Xia studied the planetary map. Countless red dots densely covered it, each marking an insurgent stronghold. It seems they aren't clever, yet I can't blame them. If humans were enslaved, they'd fight with every means too. Yin Xia understood the hundred-eyed race's thoughts. But understanding did not equate to sympathy or mercy. How many robot troops do we have now? Ella, 1. 57 million. We have complete production lines. At full capacity, we can produce 2500 robots daily. Though only 6 years had passed on this planet under Ella's management, everything had been on track since the first month. Merely a matter of mass-producing various robots. Nor were robots the only focus. To bolster future combat power and avoid encountering too many high-level civilizations across the universe, Ella was also producing more warships. Yin Xia's plan was to raise the fleet to at least 3 formations, over 130 ships, arm 1 million robots, and completely suppress the uprising. Spare none, not the insurgents nor their families. Drag them to the execution ground and behead them. Having experienced war and colonization, Yin Xia had grown sufficiently cold-blooded. By the way, Ella, you should have confiscated all weapons from the hundred-eyed race after occupying this planet. After capturing the insurgents, interrogate them. Where did so many weapons come from? If there's one batch, there may be 2. We cannot let this happen again. It's trouble for us, and I don't wish to create excessive slaughter. Ella nodded, and even as she communicated with Yin Xia, she initiated the suppression. 1 million robot army mobilized. This war was in truth a massacre. Robots were mere expendable equipment, while the hundred-eyed race were living beings. The conflict was never equal from the start. After the nearly half-year war ended, the robot count had paradoxically increased from 1 million to 18 million, while 74000 of the hundred-eyed race had perished. After the war, Ella traced the weapon's origins. The result, however, was beyond Yin Xia's expectation. A colossal underground cavern. Yin Xia entered this cavern guarded by tens of thousands of robots, and the sight before him left him in awe. The cavern was vast enough to contain an entire mountain. At its very center stood a silver pyramid. Above its apex, a miniature sun emitted a dazzling iridescent radiance, illuminating the entire cavern as if it were broad daylight. This inevitably reminded Yin Xia of certain ancient Egyptian legends. Ella, based on your comparison, is there any connection between this pyramid and the pyramids of ancient Egypt? When in doubt, it was best to consult the most knowledgeable Ella. Since there was no holographic projection outside, Ella was currently controlling a robot. Whether intentionally or by accident, it was the very same robot with the silicone shell now clad in a set of form-fitting clothes. Ella had dyed its hair, eyebrows, and even eyelashes a snowy white, while its pupils were icy blue cameras with a mechanical overlapping structure. At first glance, it was indistinguishable from a human and even possessed unparalleled beauty. Only when it moved could one discern that its skin texture differed from that of a living organism. Ella deliberately mimicked a human's contemplative expression, then spoke with an air of certainty. Yenxia, there is no connection. This pyramid itself is a starship. What you see is merely the tip of its bow above the surface. Its true shape is a prism. The pyramid structure is a pyramid shape. This structure only offers the advantage of stability and resistance to collapse on the surface of a planet with gravity. In the cosmos, unless it's a matter of preference, constructing a spaceship in a pyramid shape is pointless. It creates nothing but additional complications when the ship leaves the planetary surface. Of course, unless this civilization had discovered gravitons, fully mastered gravity, and achieved anti-gravity technology. But such a civilization would already be capable of studying the most terrifying celestial bodies in the universe, black holes, and could even use them as power stations, placing their civilization at least at level 3. Yenxia nodded to show he understood. So this spaceship had nothing to do with pyramids. As for the light at the top, Ella had already compiled a report for him displayed on the helmet visor of his spacesuit. The light was composed of bound photons. This spaceship possessed a fairly advanced light civilization. Ella estimated the civilization's level to be around 2. For each level of difference between civilizations, the disparity in energy is a factor of 10 billion, and the technological gap is even more insurmountable. Currently, Ella herself had only developed to level 1. 4. Yenxia slowly approached the spaceship. It hadn't seemed so large from a distance, but as he drew near, he truly felt his own insignificance. Just the bow of the ship was 700 meters high and 1,000 meters wide. On the visible parts, he found no seams or rivets. The bow was like a seamlessly cast metal mirror, reflecting his own image with perfect clarity. So the hundred-eyed race's civilization didn't develop over a long period. Rather, they inherited the technology from this spaceship. Yenxia asked. This was the main reason he had come here. The discovery of the spaceship explained many previously inexplicable mysteries. As a level 1 civilization, the hundred-eyed race was still in a very primitive stage regarding energy. While other explanations could be forced, they still felt somewhat unconvincing. Especially the development speed of the hundred-eyed race's civilization. After being hit by Yenxia's absolute zero missiles, it quickly fell into stagnation. They completely lacked the resilience expected of a level 1 civilization. That's correct, although no information about this spaceship has been found in the hundred-eyed race's records. But it's clear that this is the origin of their civilization. Light does not deceive. I also studied the formation age of this cavern. Oh, it's at least 7 million years old. This is also relatively consistent with the history of the hundred-eyed race's development. The hundred-eyed race has been learning from this civilization, but the things they copied were too advanced. It's like a vocational student studying rail transit, suddenly obtaining the technology and machinery to manufacture 1-nanometer chips. They can indeed produce the chips, but they are incapable of innovation. Yenxia was astounded. A level 2 civilization from 7 million years ago. If it had continued to exist until now, what level would it be? Where is the entrance? Let's go inside and have a look. The mere exposed bow was already astonishing. The interior would surely be even more spectacular. Ella pointed to a large hole beside the spaceship. Over there. The hundred-eyed race dug down to the spaceship's hatch and opened it. The hole was somewhat vertical, but for Yenxia's convenience, Ella had already arranged for a temporary elevator to be built. Yenxia descended 400 meters in the elevator before reaching the hatch Ella had mentioned. It was a massive triangular opening over 60 meters in diameter. Once inside, Yenxia was somewhat disappointed. The interior was in complete disarray. The hundred-eyed race had dismantled many components for study. Ella, can you learn the relevant technologies of this civilization from these remnants? This was the most crucial point for Yenxia. If they could decipher the technology of a level 2 civilization, their own civilization level could also advance. I've actually already started the analysis, Yenxia. This civilization is a light civilization. I predict their homeworld was not a planet extremely deficient in light like this one, but rather a planet bathed in abundant light. The homeworld of this civilization should be situated among multiple stable star systems. They yearned for light, studied it, bound it, and mastered it. Not only are this ship's weapon systems based on light, but even its power systems and main computer make extensive use of light. They use photons to store information and propel the ship. According to my calculations, the theoretical speed of this spaceship can reach 100 kms, 1/30th the speed of light. A terrifying speed. Currently, their fastest ship, the cruiser, only reached 1455 kms. We cannot fully decipher their technology yet. The developmental path of this civilization differs greatly from that of humanity. The hundred-eyed race only managed to learn some superficial aspects. Yanxia looked around. Many of the instruments were extremely peculiar, most made of crystal designed to serve the propagation of light. We mustn't just imitate blindly. We need to absorb the essence and discard the dross. By the way, what about this spaceship? I noticed its hull material is quite special. No rust after 7 million years. Can we retrofit this ship? Yanxia had taken a liking to the hull material. Ella thought deeply and calculated. No problem. However, I would prefer to analyze the material used in this ship so we can produce it ourselves. That would be even better. Yanxia nodded. Then let's do it. Afterward, involve those hundred-eyed scientists, and although I trust your intelligence, Ella, a civilization is never formed by just one or a few individuals. More important than technology and computational power is imagination. Squeeze every bit of imagination out of those hundred-eyed beings. Yanxia decided to develop on this planet first. This would allow them to face unknown dangers promptly in the future rather than responding in a panic as they did with the hundred-eyed race, which took a millennium to conquer. Understood. I will subsequently conduct prolonged brainwashing on the elite hundred-eyed individuals, turning the entire hundred-eyed race into vassals of humanity. 500 years had passed since the discovery of the Level 2 light energy civilization spacecraft. During this time, Yanxia had entered hibernation several times, with his waking hours totaling no more than 5 years. His awakenings were mostly due to issues concerning the hundred-eyed tribe. Fully colonizing a civilization could not be accomplished in a short time. It required an exceedingly lengthy process. For the hundred-eyed tribe, Ella's calculations had pinpointed exactly 500 years. This time, Yanxia had not awakened for the hundred-eyed tribe. Instead, their civilization had entered an entirely new echelon. The controlled nuclear fusion device had been iterated upon. After mastering the antimatter cannon, the development of matter-antimatter annihilation energy was placed on the agenda. This was a process even more protracted than controlled nuclear fusion, for the energy generated by matter-antimatter annihilation was far greater. It necessitated upgrades across various industrial chains before it could become a truly mass-producible device. Now Ella had completed this technology. It utilized the very special metal from the surface of that spacecraft. Through Ella's research, this metal was an alloy bonded at the quark level. Its essence was not entirely metallic, but a combination of metal and stone. Its half-life spanned 7 billion years, with a density of 24.10 GCM superscript 3, a Mohs hardness of 15 A, and a melting point of 8.7000 degrees Celsius. Most terrifying of all was its strength, 14127 MPa, meaning it could withstand 144 tons of force per square centimeter. Only its excessively high density could be considered a drawback, as it would affect the spacecraft's speed. Yet all of this was merely basic operation. What truly astounded Yanxia were just 4 words: no electrical charge. This Level 2 civilization had evidently already focused on the influence of magnetic force on objects. By removing electrical charge, magnetic force could no longer exert Lorentz force on the object. This heralded that warfare in a Level 2 civilization involved the 4 fundamental forces. They used these fundamental forces as weapons and likewise defended against them. Ella had spent 420 years mastering the production of this metal, subsequently applying it to various fields. The Hope had also undergone a complete transformation. Yanxia donned his spacesuit and stepped out of the Hope. From the outside, the once black Hope had turned a brilliant silver, the entire vessel appearing as if pieced together from countless mirrors. The entire rear section of the Hope had been disassembled and replaced due to the modifications. A robot passing by Yanxia suddenly turned around and said to him, "Yanxia, I'll send a car to pick you up for the factory later. We're waiting for you there to witness the monumental progress of these 500 years." The voice was Ellis. Yanxia nodded, then looked toward where the spacecraft was. What had once been a sandy buried, after 500 years of development, it had transformed into a colossal city filled with skyscrapers and dazzling neon lights. At first glance, it felt no different from Earth. The difference was that this city was more cyberpunk. Not only were there roads on the ground, but some lanes wove between buildings 2,000 meters high and even tens of thousands of meters up in the sky, forming an intricate road network. These vehicles had no wheels. They used magnetic levitation capable of hovering up to about 300 meters off the ground. Everywhere he looked, there was light. Massive billboards, holographic projections, vehicle lights from countless homes, all merged into one, illuminating the entire city as if it were daytime. Yet the inhabitants of this city were not humans, but the hundred-eyed tribe and robots. No need, he'll take the maglev train instead. I want to see this city. Yanxia wished to immerse himself in the bustling vibrancy. Perhaps it was due to the long passage of time, or maybe he was growing old. Without watching the movies Ella generated, he might have even forgotten the scenes of Earth. Walking into the city, he saw many hemispherical domes within which various earth plants were cultivated. The streets were lined with the hundred-eyed tribe. Wherever Yanxia went, all the hundred-eyed tribe would disperse. Through the real-time translation system Ella had built, Yinxia could understand the emotions and language of these beings. Fear, curiosity, reverence. Like humans, the hundred-eyed tribe, as highly intelligent beings, were complex. These Threaten slime creatures sometimes expressed emotions even more richly than humans, perhaps owing to their eyes. The eyes of the hundred-eyed tribe could perceive more colors than human eyes. More colors enabled them to have greater artistic expression, and art was one of the foundations for generating complex emotions. The only thing missing from the entire city was noise. The whole city was eerily quiet after all. This planet had no atmosphere. He passed through the city's most bustling commercial street, where a plaza centered around a lava pool stood. Taking an elevator 1200 meters high to the top of a tall building, he arrived at a massive platform. A track consisting of only a single layer of metal plates stretched from one end of the horizon to the other. A bullet-shaped train 6 meters high and 8 meters wide approached in utter silence. A large bulb on its head flashed, signaling its arrival. It gradually decelerated from 1000 kilometers per hour to a complete stop. The massive doors opened, and Yinxia stepped inside. There were no seats inside. The empty carriage was packed with the hundred-eyed tribe. Soon the train departed, leaving the city and entering a barren zone. Here only giant hemispherical glass domes and volcanic landscapes could be seen. Each dome covered at least 10 square kilometers, housing earth plants within. Around the volcanoes, more native plants thrived, their colors mostly vivid, with some even emitting a faint fluorescence. Half an hour later, Yinxia arrived at another city. This city was more like an industrial zone, filled with factories devoid of entertainment or residences, only countless mechanical components. As soon as Yinxia alighted from the train, a robot approached. "Follow me, Yinxia." He and the robot took a special elevator installed on a stone platform. This elevator did not go upward, but downward. After descending through about 100 meters of soil, Yinxia's view opened up. It was a place resembling a circular large stadium, but far larger, with a diameter of 15 kilometers. The elevator was near the center of this ring. Yinxia looked down and saw a pristine rainforest. Only a true botanist entering this rainforest would realize that these trees did not belong to any known species on Earth. They were Earth-like plants created by Ella through gene editing. Descending another 4700 meters, he reached the ground of the underground space, a white hall. On each side of the hall were doors of various colors, each marked with Chinese characters indicating the destination. Entering a door, he found a long tubular corridor. He didn't need to walk. A parallel escalator carried him along. The walls, ceiling, and floor of the corridor were all screens displaying various Earth animals. Upon reaching the end, Yinxia passed through a square door 200 meters long and only 40 meters high. After walking for 10 minutes to the end, he suddenly looked up and saw the starry sky. He was inside a natural pit with a diameter of 18 kilometers. The bottom was a metal platform filling the pit. Almost all the rock walls inside the pit were obscured with various 10 soft-meter tall, giant mechanical arms distributed everywhere. Yinxia was led into a massive floating living room protruding from the rock wall. The living room was already filled with over a dozen hundred-eyed tribe members. They held the highest status among the hundred-eyed tribe rulers, top scientists, military commanders. After Yinxia sat at the front, a section of the platform began to descend, revealing a huge, deep pit. A massive wall rose around it, blocking the mechanical arms, including their living room. Ella appeared. The glass in front of them turned into a display screen. "Yinxia, please watch my demonstration." On the screen, an aerial view of the crater was displayed. Yinxia asked, "Aren't you supposed to show me the matter-antimatter annihilation device?" Ella smirked mysteriously. "Of course, what I'm showing you now is exactly that. However, the first device we produced might be much larger than you imagine, Yinxia." Hearing this, a faint premonition stirred within Yinxia. He turned to look at the other hundred-eyed beings behind him. Their crystalline fiber-optic connections flickered rapidly. Even without translation, Yinxia could tell they were in a state of excitement. Ella continued, "It is the year 4265 AD, Yinxia. We have once again achieved a tech. Mastering matter-antimatter annihilation energy grants us the ability to move massive objects." Ignition commencing. All preparations had been completed before Yinxia awoke from his slumber. This was the final test. Yinxia felt the ground tremble, transitioning from high-frequency light vibrations to low-frequency violent quakes. In the aerial footage on the screen, intense light distortions appeared at the crater's mouth. Then an immensely violent thermal current accompanied by white flames erupted outward. A planetary drive. Yinxia stood up. The scale of this project was immense. Such a colossal structure couldn't have been built in mere decades. Ella might have started constructing it 500 years ago. At that time, Yinxia's greatest concern was how to maintain long-term colonization of the hundred-eyed race, because the planet he was on now wasn't their original target. It was only suitable for the hundred-eyed race, not for humans. Knowing that his cells could be used to cultivate true humans, Yinxia's ultimate goal remained Proximus. But if he left on a spaceship, managing the hundred-eyed race would become impossible. The distance to Proxima Centauri was still 3 light-years. Even with Ella's remote control, a signal round trip would take 6 full years. That was too long. A rebellion by the hundred-eyed race would be unstoppable. He had only mentioned it in passing, never expecting Ella to take it so seriously, actually conducting research and even building it. The completion of the planetary drive meant they could push this planet to the edge of Proxima Centauri. Furthermore, they could build an entire star system, moving several planets of sufficient mass into the habitable zone. It might even be possible to bring this planet into the solar system, positioning it where Earth once was to become a new Earth. However, this would still require a vast amount of time. Because Ella predicted that the sun would enter a period of extreme activity over the next million years, turning the solar system's habitable zone into a forbidden zone for civilization. How much can this single drive move the planet? Yinxia asked. Ella quickly provided the data. All celestial bodies in the Milky Way orbit its center. The hundred-eyed star beneath our feet moves at 115 kilometers. With only one planetary drive, it can only be used to control the planet's direction. However, I've already put the production of more planetary drives on the schedule. In about 200 years, Yinxia, you'll see 100 such drives. Don't underestimate them, because each drive is only 18 kilometers in diameter. Due to the planet's lack of atmosphere and the efficiency of matter-antimatter annihilation energy, 100 of them can propel this planet to speeds exceeding 250 kilometers. For such a behemoth, that was an incredibly high speed. No wonder the hundred-eyed beings were so ecstatic. The completion of the planetary drives in 200 years meant they could fully control the planet beneath their feet. It was a remarkable feat. The iron walls descended again. After the hundred-eyed high-ranking officials dispersed, Yinxia remained seated. Ella, since matter-antimatter annihilation technology has reached a usable stage, what about the other thing? Over the past 500 years, there had been occasional acts of rebellion from the hundred-eyed race. To resolve this, Yinxia had decided to develop something to achieve complete civilization invasion and suppression. Virtual reality. A key part of civilizational invasion is cultural invasion, perhaps even the most crucial part. The hardest aspect of cultural invasion is making the other side accept knowledge. The easier part is making them accept entertainment. Yinxia's decision was to create a virtual reality game world where he could gradually implant culture into the hundred-eyed race step by step. Ella never forgot anything. Virtual reality technology is quite easy if it's only visual. But if it involves brainwave connection, it becomes exceptionally difficult. Over these years, I've dissected over 1,000 bodies and discovered they don't have brains. Their consciousness resides within their highly developed nervous system spread throughout their bodies. These nerves can interconnect to form a structure similar to a brain, or they can disperse to handle simple tasks like shutting down 99 of their nerves to sleep while using one for vigilance. This poses significant difficulties. Pulling a hundred-eyed being's consciousness into virtual reality is tens of thousands of times harder than doing so for a human. As she spoke, Ella made a gesture of invitation. Yinxia stood up and walked outside. They talked as they went, taking a maglev train to another city. This city lacked light, with few volcanoes around, shrouded in pitch-black cold. Entering it, he saw tens of thousands of various robots working there. I originally planned to build my mainframe here, but I thought I'd follow Yinxia. The hundred-eyed star is not our destination, only our beginning. So my mainframe remains on the hope. Here, everything you see is part of another mainframe. Yinxia looked around. There was no other word for it but awe, because it was immense. It was a colossal city spanning 30 kilometers in diameter. If all the structures here were replaced with residences of equal volume, they could easily house 1 million people. And this was just a part of the mainframe. How many times more powerful is this mainframe's computing power compared to yours? Yinxia sensed Ella greatly desired this mainframe. 10 trillion times. Ella's computing power had long surpassed quantum computing in digital image processing, reaching 7.9 septillion calculations per second. Multiplying that by 10 trillion resulted in an inconceivable 79 undecillion calculations per second. Such terrifying computing power was beyond human imagination. This mainframe will be fully applied to the field of virtual reality. It is already developing a complete virtual world. Its limit should be constructing a complex world 0.5 light-years in diameter. Its computing power will be entirely dedicated to maintaining the virtual world, creating 1 quadrillion beings within it, with each being sharing its computational resources. Yinxia calculated. That meant each being would have 79 quadrillion calculations per second at its disposal. The intelligence simulated by this level of computing power was no less than that of an average human. Was this considered creating a world? What's the maximum player capacity? Yinxia remembered that back on Earth, each server could only hold a few dozen people, though any more would cause lag. Even in online games, the optimal number of players on the same screen was around 150. This virtual world has only one server and can accommodate 10 billion players simultaneously on the same map. It was a gamer's dream. Yinxia felt tempted to enter it himself. Unfortunately, constructing a complex map 0.5 5 light-years in size would still take a considerable amount of time. He would just continue his slumber waiting for that moment to arrive. 200 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Yin Xia felt his existence resembled a peculiar form of cultivation. Even cultivation itself wasted long stretches of time on training, leaving little room for a life truly his own. This thought brought his parents to mind. Whenever he stayed up late or refused to eat, they would always chide him, "Are you cultivating immortality?" His memories had grown hazy. Now he regretted not having a single photo of his parents saved on his phone. His daily melancholy persisted for an hour. Yin Xia stepped out of his room and naturally waited for a robot to deliver his meal while conversing with Ella. "The last planetary thruster is complete, isn't it? When will it be activated to redirect the 100-eyed star's trajectory toward Proxima?" Ella seemed unsatisfied with mere holographic projections. It had taken over the previous silicone robot, now dressed in a blue and white cheongsam, and walked over. This was a small bar. Ella skillfully wielded a shaker and jigger, occasionally performing tricks, then produced a glass, added ice, rimmed it with rose salt, and placed a slice of lemon on top. The mixed cocktail was poured into the glass. Ella used whipped egg white to seal it, and finally slid the drink over to Yin Xia. Now, as Ella spoke, the entire ground of 100-eyed star trembled. The planetary thruster had ignited. Yin Xia calmly picked up the twilight-colored drink and asked, "What is this called?" "Dream." Yin Xia downed the liquor in one gulp. It was fiery and pungent, as if swallowing a chili pepper. "Loneliness in life is unavoidable. My soul alone knows boundless sorrow. In dreams my homeland returns, and I wake with tears streaming. Who will ascend the high tower with me? Longing for the clear autumn view. The past has turned to emptiness like a dream within a dream." Yin Xia had never liked poetry, as he was forced to memorize it and could never feel its emotions. Only now, immersed in the moment, did he truly grasp what the verses conveyed. "When the planetary thruster activates, it's time for us to leave this planet." Although the planet moved at 250 kilometers per second, reaching Proxima would still take 3600. This was far too slow. The Hope has been equipped with matter-antimatter annihilation thrusters. What is its current speed? The Hope had previously used electromagnetic thrusters, which were supposed to be upgraded to nuclear fusion. But encountering the 100-eyed race led to the development of matter-antimatter annihilation for weapons, so they decided to create even more powerful matter-antimatter annihilation thrusters. This represented a leap in civilization. 3220 kilometers per second, Ella replied. This speed was more than double the previous one. In theory, any object could approach the speed of light with sustained acceleration. Matter-antimatter annihilation energy should be able to propel a ship to 10 of light speed. But that was merely a hypothesis. The assumed weight of the ship differed greatly from reality. A colossal vessel like the Hope had a dead weight of 74 million tons. Accelerating such a behemoth to 10 light speed under perfect conditions would require at least 18 million tons of antimatter, nearly a quarter of the ship's mass, which was practically impossible. In practice, one couldn't focus solely on acceleration. A deceleration afterward had to be considered, as there were no brakes in space. Theoretical acceleration was merely a one-way ticket to doom. The reality might involve accelerating the ship to 10 light speed and crashing into a target planet, triggering a mass extinction of its life forms. After finishing his drink, Yin Xia went to eat. Once fully sated, he began to arrange matters. Although Ella could consider every detail, Yin Xia still needed to handle things personally to resolve issues with. Leaving everything to Ella would only cause conflict between machine ideology and intelligent life ideology. Before leaving 100-eyed star, Yin Xia needed Ella to settle everything for the 100-eyed race. This included restricting the 100-eyed race's technology to prevent them from overturning their rule during the 3600-year journey to Proxima. Accordingly, the number of regular robots on 100-eyed star had increased to 300 million, exceeding the total population of the 100-eyed race. All cities were fully mechanized, ensuring no creature within the 100-eyed race could wield threatening weapons. These tasks consumed an entire month of Yin Xia's time. Finally, Ella completed inspections of all ships. Yin Xia, we now have 157 ships, including 4 main fleets and 1 reconnaissance fleet. All ships are equipped with the latest antimatter main cannons and high-energy laser weapons, and the magnetic shield. The small fighters aboard have been updated to the 3rd generation, powered by matter-antimatter annihilation energy, reaching speeds of 7810 kilometers per second. Besides these ships, the flagship of the 2nd Fleet has been replaced with a light civilization warship unearthed from underground, where I restored most of its technology and integrated it with ours. With our current combat power, we can wage war against civilizations above level 1. 6. All warships are now ready in space. Are we leaving 100-eyed star now? Yin Xia pondered if anything was left undone, and after a moment felt everything was prepared. Liftoff. It's time to bid farewell to this planet. I've grown fond of 100-eyed star as it is, but unfortunately it's not suitable for human habitation. After awakening, Yin Xia had visited many places on 100-eyed star. With Ellis modifications, the planet had indeed become more beautiful, aligning with human aesthetics. First stage launch platform ignited. Departing from Hundred-Eyed Star, the entire ship shook violently as the Hope was propelled upward by a platform. Due to its immense weight, the Hope required a two-stage acceleration to escape Hundred-Eyed Star's gravity. When the platform reached an altitude of 60 kilometers, the Hope's engines ignited. At 210 kilometers above the surface, the Hope broke free from Hundred-Eyed Star's massive gravitational pull. Yin Xiao watched on the screen as Hundred-Eyed Star grew smaller. At that moment, all the lights on the planet lit up. From space, Hundred-Eyed Star appeared colorful and vibrant. It resembled an eye in the deep void, gazing at the departing fleet, led by the Hope, or a giant neon lamp. Behind this neon glow, a bright trail chased after their ships. Yet the more it pursued, the farther it fell behind. Switch. Direct toward the goal. We have never changed. Go and conquer it. After leaving the Hundred-Eyed Star far behind, Yin Xia did not immediately enter hibernation. He tested his current body and found it had achieved perfection in every aspect. Weighing 95 kilograms, he could bench press 290 kilograms, squat 430 kilograms, and deadlift 410 kilograms. While still a distance from the data provided by Ella, he was not a professional athlete and had no need to push himself to the limit with excessive training. Standing in the gym beside him was a 30 square meter room containing his latest hibernation pod, though this one was covered with a dense network of wires. It seems everything is ready. Has it been tested? Yin Xia inquired, still uneasy about this technology, for it involved invading the brain to directly read consciousness. In various science fiction works, others could even use such technology to read thoughts within the brain. Even without intrusion, an accident could result in memory loss, idiocy, or even immediate brain death. Rest assured, Yin Xiao, this technology has been refined through a century of accumulation and experimentation. I cultivated tens of thousands of brains from your cells. Aside from the initial loss of a few thousand, all subsequent brains remained intact. As Ella spoke these words, Yin Xia had already visualized her research scene and drew in a sharp breath. Though his heart still harbored some trepidation, the allure of this technology was far too great. Back on Earth, humanity had envisioned two futures and had indeed been advancing toward them. One was the deep development of virtual worlds to solve population issues. The other was interstellar colonization. Now he could pursue both simultaneously, as they were not in conflict. During the long journey through space, even the most dedicated student could not endlessly entertain themselves with phones or computers. A true virtual world was the optimal solution. So how do you solve the latency issue? The spaceship was moving away from the host machine, inevitably causing delays. Then I'm afraid you'll have to make do with recordings, Yin Xia. Everything you experience will be transmitted as recordings, including interactions with characters. Don't worry about communication with other players. You can only have real-time conversations through the friend interface. If you need virtual chats, I can have the host take over all characters in the recordings to achieve real-time interaction with you. The speed of light, an insurmountable chasm. Yin Xia had already pondered this issue and was merely curious about Ella's solution. In truth, it was not unacceptable. It was akin to a single-player game with a chat application installed. Yin Xia walked into the adjacent bathroom to shower, then dried the water droplets from his body with a towel. He entered that room. The hibernation pod was at least twice as large as any he had slept in before. Peering inside, he saw not a soft bed or seat, but a special jelly-like viscous liquid. Ella approached to explain to Yin Xia. This is a special coolant. It won't freeze and can perfectly maintain your body's condition. The reason for this change is to ensure your brain remains active during hibernation. This liquid can provide ample oxygen and nutrient supply to the brain. However, this hibernation method requires some preparation from you, Yin Xia. You need to inhale all this liquid into your lungs. The brain is an extremely energy-intensive organ. Though it does not constitute several tens of % of the body, its demands are by no means low. A body in hibernation for decades or centuries could not guarantee such energy supply. Seeing this liquid, Yin Xia thought of something similar: fluorocarbons, which allowed humans to breathe in liquid. Yet this substance was clearly different, as fluorocarbons could only remain inert at room temperature, whereas his hibernation state required a temperature of -262 degrees Celsius. He lay down inside. Initially, there was a strong sensation of suffocation and choking as the liquid entered, but as it filled his lungs, that feeling gradually faded, and he settled into calm. A powerful drowsiness overcame him, and he slowly closed his eyes. After an unknown span of time, he opened them again. What he saw was not the spaceship, but a vast, boundless green grassland stretching as far as the eye could see. The sky was azure, the clouds pale white, and a gentle breeze swept by, tousling his hair and stirring the fine grass into layers of waves like an emerald sea. A herd of horses frolicked happily in the distance, while a line of startled egrets soared into the sky, piercing the clouds. He spread his arms and took a deep breath. It was incredibly fresh, as if real. At that moment it felt as though he had truly returned to that world, that Earth. Yinxia. A crisp, tender voice came from behind him. Yinxia turned around to see a white-haired girl. Under 1.50 meters in height, with willow leaf eyebrows and almond-shaped eyes, her eyelashes trembled slightly, like fluttering snow-white feathers. She wore a white floral knee-length dress, paired with matching round-toe cloth, shoes. Her long hair, cascading to her waist, and her delicate skin tinged with a rosy blush, was like uncut jade. She was not breathtakingly beautiful, but rather like a girl next door, carrying a certain warmth and approachability. Before Yinxia, she spun around, her skirt blooming like a flower, her face beaming with joyful laughter that rang out like wind chimes. Ella. Yinxia found it hard to accept at first. After all, the real Ella had seldom used holographic projections to communicate with him, lately mostly relying on that silicone robot. Now her appearance was a three-dimensional version of the original two-dimensional character, her temperament vastly different. To keep you from getting bored, Yinxia, I also registered a character to accompany you on adventures in this world. So this is what it feels like to have flesh and blood as a human. Ella curiously pinched the flesh on her arm. When she let go, it snapped back with a soft sound, and the spot slowly reddened. This world could simulate the five senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Hee hee, how wonderful. Yinxia, watching from the side, felt a chill run down his spine. Ella, please stop that. You're scaring me a little. She was too human-like, too much like a woman. Yinxia even felt as though a real person stood before him. Ella puffed out her cheeks in anger. What do you mean by that, Yinxia? Don't you want me to accompany you? Yinxia looked down at the ground, as if searching for something. Ella leaned in curiously and asked, What are you looking for, Yinxia? Can't you see? A floor full of goosebumps. Ah, Yinxia, you jerk. Ella stomped her feet in frustration, looking adorably charming. Yinxia had originally planned to venture through this world alone, but now he felt that having a person by his side might not be so bad. He summoned the interface and looked at his row of mediocre attributes. Level 1 I base attributes of strength, agility, stamina, and intelligence are all 10 points, no skills, no weapons, no accessories, no talents. It seems he'll have to start from scratch. Yinxia was brimming with motivation. Though he could have Ella give him a max-level character, what meaning would that hold? He had no need to show off to anyone. He only wanted to experience the joy of exploration and adventure. This world was a fusion of immortal cultivation, martial arts, literary arts, soul arts, magic, combat, aura, and all the monsters from every legend and game on Earth. According to the data Yinxia had learned earlier, the total number of creatures in this world was 10 billion, with 39 billion species, including 7 billion wild monsters, and 3 million intelligent species across 1.7 billion nations. Levels and attributes had no upper limit. At this stage, the NPCs in the world were still at a relatively weak level, growing alongside the players. The journey to Proxima Centauri would take 283 years, and he would undergo a new round of growth in this colossal virtual world spanning half a light year, or 4.7 trillion kilometers in diameter. Over 283 years, within the virtual world divine revelation, there emerged a pinnacle cultivator of the nascent soul stage, a renowned white-robed sword master of the Jianghu, a black-robed wizard dwelling in a lofty tower, a silver-armored knight leading myriad troops to war, a wise sovereign conquering all directions, a supreme assassin lurking in the shadows, the chief adventurer of the adventurers guild, a mage capable of summoning thunder, a hero who slew a dragon, and a high priest who awakened the power of ancient totems. All of it both real and illusory. Upon opening his eyes, Yinxia was freed from all this. What a fulfilling 283 years. Compared to the past, when he would inexplicably sleep for centuries, spending those wasted years in the virtual world was far more meaningful. He sat up, and white vapor began to emanate from his nostrils and mouth. The robot, which had stood beside the hibernation pod for 283 years, spoke. The liquid in the hibernation pod evaporates at temperatures exceeding 50 degrees, transforming from liquid to gas. This helps expel it from the body. Welcome back, Yinxia. Looking at the robot before him, Yinxia felt a profound sense of dissonance. After all, Ella in the virtual world was so endearing, cute, and prone to acting coy. Yinxia ignored Ella, left the hibernation pod dressed, and headed toward the cockpit. Yinxia, why aren't you answering me? Has such a long time together made you tired of me? Or did the liquid damage your... Ella followed behind him, incessantly questioning, even though she clearly knew everything. With Ella's current intelligence, it was easy to deduce that Yinxia simply didn't want to engage with her. But Ella didn't choose that answer. Instead, she made a more human-like decision, to keep pressing for answers. Entering the cockpit, the screen was already displaying what Yinxia wanted to see. Two colossal stars, one slightly larger than the sun, with a similar golden-yellow spectrum, and the other slightly smaller, a warm orange-yellow. These two stars were the Southern Gate binary stars Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri B. Arriving here meant they had simultaneously entered the constellation of Centaurus. Proxima Centauri B was not a planet of either star in this binary system. Yanxia's target was currently obscured by the brilliance of the two stars. That was a red dwarf star with only 12.2 of the Sun's mass orbiting the center of mass of Alpha Centauri A and B. This star was called Proxima Centauri, also known as Alpha Centauri C. To describe the scene, Yanxia was seeing Alpha Centauri A and B held hands spinning in the middle of a playground, while Proxima Centauri ran around them on the track, though the playground was more circular. The distance between the two large stars was only 23 astronomical units, equivalent to a star in our solar system orbiting between Uranus and Neptune. Meanwhile, Proxima Centauri was 0.2 light-years from the binary system's center of mass, and it had 3 companion planets, Proxima Centauri B, C, and D. Among them, Proxima Centauri C was a massive rocky planet 7 times Earth's mass, but located 1.5 astronomical units from Proxima Centauri. This distance would be just right in the solar system, but as a red dwarf, Proxima Centauri's surface temperature was too low, only 2,800 degrees Celsius, far below the Sun's 6,000 degrees. Consequently, the temperature on Proxima Centauri C plummeted to 230 degrees Celsius, nearly matching the surface temperature of Bayin star. Without abundant geothermal heat, it would be difficult to form a civilization. Although Proxima Centauri D was ranked last, it was actually the closest planet to Proxima Centauri, less than 5 million kilometers away. If a railway were built, a high-speed train from early 21st century Earth could reach Proxima Centauri's surface in just a year and a half. Its surface temperature might approach 100 degrees Celsius, and critically, its mass was only 26 of Earth's, too small to easily form a civilization. Only Proxima Centauri B, located within the habitable zone of the red dwarf system, was the most suitable planet for human survival and the most likely to have birthed a civilization. Let's stop here. Yanxia did not intend to land directly on Proxima Centauri B's surface. After all, it was uncertain whether a civilization existed there. Deploy the Falcon reconnaissance probe. Ensure it remains covert and does not approach the planetary surface. If a planet harbored an advanced civilization, its surface would be covered with numerous structures visible with a high-powered telescope. Ella analyzed Proxima Centauri B. What do you think is the probability of a civilization arising there? A planet like Bayin star could birth a Type 1 civilization. Then for this planet, so perfectly suited for life, the probability would be at least 10,000 times greater than Bayin stars. 13.72. Under close observation, Proxima Centauri B is 1.52 times Earth's size larger than previously predicted. This mass has created a thicker atmosphere. Although it is tidally locked due to its proximity to Proxima Centauri, making one side excessively cold and the other scorching hot. The atmosphere can distribute heat more evenly across the planet's surface, sharing the thermal load. This results in a predicted temperature of only 46 degrees Celsius on the day side and 82 degrees on the night side. The average temperature in the twilight zone is around 10 degrees Celsius, most suitable for life. Furthermore, Proxima Centauri B's orbital eccentricity is only 0.17, and its orbital resonance ratio is 3:2, making the system relatively stable. The probability of civilization on its surface might be even higher than this estimate. In a word, it was very high. The Falcon probe flew for 12 days, crossing 57 astronomical units until it was finally just 4 astronomical units from Proxima Centauri B. There, the Falcon probe's head detached, and a 3-meter diameter telescope focused on Proxima Centauri B. Over 3 days, it captured humanity's first ultra-high-definition image of Proxima Centauri with a resolution of 70 trillion pixels. After another 19 minutes, the Hope received the image. Ella processed it and zoomed in to the maximum. On the dark side of Proxima Centauri B, countless points of light were evenly distributed. Yanxia felt a chill run down his spine. If each point of light represented a cluster of buildings, then the level of development on Proxima Centauri was staggeringly high. The Falcon has transmitted a second image. Ella spoke, displaying a photo of Proxima Centauri C. It too was covered in a vast number of lights. At this point, it was fully confirmed that the civilization on Proxima Centauri B was at least Type 1. Ella scanned all interstellar dust within 10 astronomical units. Deploy reconnaissance probes to 30 astronomical units away to ensure no warships from this civilization are present. All ships prepare to activate defense systems and enter combat mode. Recall the Falcon. Do not act rashly. The entire fleet will maintain radio silence for 1 month to ensure the civilization on Proxima Centauri has not detected us. A series of commands were issued. Yanxia had to be extremely cautious. They had observed the civilization on Proxima Centauri, but they also had to anticipate that the civilization there might have already observed them. A month was not long. Yet under such tense circumstances, each day felt like an eternity. When the month ended, the surrounding investigations had reached their midpoint, yielding no discoveries. Meanwhile, Yanxia tasked Ella with probing Proxima Centauri, revealing only a narrow passage between Proxima Centauri B and Proxima Centauri C. Beyond this passage, the civilization on Proxima Centauri B never ventured, Even their warships remained on the planetary surface and beyond zero. 1 astronomical unit, there was complete emptiness. This civilization resembles an ant confined within a drawn circle. Though it can see and step beyond the boundary, the scent of ink repels and frightens it, keeping it trapped inside. This was Yenxia's assessment of the civilization. Ella, what level do you estimate this civilization to be? Through a month of observation, they had gathered more information. Evaluating comprehensively based on spacecraft speed, energy utilization, and developmental pace, around level 1. 8. This is an exceedingly powerful civilization, possibly having evolved for tens of thousands of years. Judging by the number of spacecraft, they also possess a vast population, at least over 10 billion. Each 0.1 level gap in civilization represents a tenfold difference in total energy. Strictly speaking, Yenxia's fleet, combined with the full technological sharing of the 100 clan and another century of development, would only reach level 1. 7. This civilization was far stronger than Yenxia's current fleet. Initially, Yenxia planned to retreat. But after discovering this trait of the civilization, he decided to observe further. We should be able to mimic the appearance of this civilization's spacecraft. We need to infiltrate the interior of this civilization to obtain its information. Half a month later, a spacecraft resembling a steel jellyfish, with a square box at the front and dozens of tubular independent thrusters at the rear, advanced toward the civilization. After 40 days of travel, it reached the outer space of Proxima Centauri C. Before it could even approach, it was destroyed. Within the next 2 days, the passage between Proxima Centauri B and Proxima Centauri C was closed. The lights in the dark regions of the planets vanished, and even the defensive warships in outer space of both planets began to power down. On the third day, a mechanical spider half a meter in diameter landed in an uninhabited area of Proxima Centauri C, surrounded by broken industrial waste and hundreds of robots processing the debris. Due to the presence of civilization, the planet was not as cold as expected. After injecting vast amounts of greenhouse gases, it had become habitable. The robots lacked humanoid appearances, featuring only simple box-like shells with 2 mechanical arms for grasping garbage. They floated using electromagnetic force, capable of moving loads weighing several tons. The mechanical spider leaped onto a garbage processing robot, slipped through a gap in its shell into its body, then dismantled its core for modification. The garbage robot fell from the air as if scrapped. No creature paid it any attention. The other robots continued their tasks, clearly lacking high intelligence. After the mechanical spider completed a circuit board inside the garbage robot, it extracted its own main control chip and soldered it onto the board. The garbage robot began to awaken, dismantling the mechanical spider into countless pieces mixed within the trash. Then it started working like the other garbage processing robots. This continued for a week. The garbage robot slowly approached the edge of the landfill. It saw the life forms of this world. Their bodies were bulky, about 2.5 meters tall, with rough rock-like skin. They possessed 3 pairs of rhinoceros-like legs, a stout torso parallel to the ground like Earth animals, no tail, and a laterally short, somewhat cramped body. At the front of the body was a massive tumor-like head covered with 10 pairs of bone spurs. On this head, over half a meter in diameter, sat a single eye, only slightly larger than a human's. Of vision did not seem to be their primary sense. From their shoulders grew a pair of grasping appendages, while the true main limbs were 4 flexible tentacles emerging from beneath the jaw. These creatures resembled legendary monsters, yet they were indeed the masters of this planet. Like the 100 clan, they existed beyond the limits of human aesthetics. Their mouths were the most human-like part, featuring fanged mantis-like mandibles. The 4 flexible tentacles seemed to assist feeding like pincers, but through evolution, they had taken on more primary functions. The robot listened to the sounds these creatures made. Contrary to their appearance, their voices were rhythmic light. Moreover, they were entirely within the ultrasonic range at frequencies inaudible to human ears. None of these intelligent beings noticed a robot observing them from the garbage heap. They moved about, exhibiting a high degree of complexity akin to human society. The robot collected this data and transmitted it into the cosmos using light as an information medium, which Ella received and analyzed. Light can convey more complex information than sound. Through analysis, I have mastered this civilization's language. Now I will translate it for you, Yenxia. Yenxia reclined in a massage chair, enjoying the mechanical arms extending from it. Ella played the acquired information. Did you hear? We discovered traces of an alien civilization and shot down their spacecraft. Nonsense, I was nearby. The spacecraft just deviated from its course due to an accident. That was just a spacecraft imitating ours, built by an alien civilization to infiltrate us. Is there really an alien civilization? The universe is so vast. How could we be the only civilization? There must be others. If a higher civilization exists, we must hide ourselves well and not be discovered. No, has a higher civilization already found us? What will they do? Don't panic. The higher-ups haven't released any news yet. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. According to current theories, the universe is a battlefield where all civilizations are hostile to each other, hiding like us. If a civilization is discovered, a higher one will inevitably destroy it with weapons. Exactly as long as we keep hiding, we won't be found by alien civilizations. We're still too weak, we need to develop push to the limit. Yanxia sensed a familiar ring in these words. The Dark Forest Theory. Ella nodded. Yes, this civilization seems to have been lying low, avoiding discovery and destruction by alien civilizations. Their decision to keep warships near the planetary surface and their earlier reactions largely stem from this consensus. Yanxia felt a strange sensation. It was like a fusion of fiction and reality. A saying came to mind. Truth is stranger than fiction. He laughed. Ella, perhaps we can conquer this civilization. The Dark Forest Law is a derivative of the Fermi paradox. Its foundation lies in the premise that survival is the primary objective of civilization, that all resources in the universe are finite, and that civilizations must continuously expand and grow. Thus, conflict among civilizations in the cosmos is inevitable. To acquire more resources, one must coupled with the immense difficulty of intercivilizational communication, the notion that those not of our kind are bound to have different intentions makes it nearly impossible for civilizations to extend goodwill toward one another. Based on Yanxia's observations and experiences thus far, the universe within his field of vision aligns closely with the tenets of the Dark Forest Theory, much like the conflict between his people and the Hundred-Eyed Clan. The Hundred-Eyed Clan launched an attack on them without hesitation, unable to ascertain the purpose of the Hope's arrival in their star system. They had no way of knowing whether Yanxia harbored malicious intent toward their civilization, nor could they determine what Yanxia believed about their own intentions toward him. When everything remains uncertain, the best course of action is to strike first, lest one fall victim to The developmental pace of the Hundred-Eyed Clan also differed vastly from that of humanity, further validating another aspect of the Dark Forest Law: technological explosion. Nevertheless, Yanxia himself did not fully subscribe to the Dark Forest Law. One of the most critical points is that once a coordinate is exposed, regardless of whether a civilization truly exists there, it will inevitably suffer an arbitrary strike. For instance, if there were 1 million civilizations in the Milky Way and the coordinates of one were revealed, 900,000 might stand idly by, 90,000 might choose to investigate, but there would inevitably be those who opt for a different course, firing a random attack in that direction. Under this premise, the Dark Forest Law holds true. All civilizations in the universe strive to conceal themselves like hunters lurking in the forest. However, during development, a Type 1 civilization cannot ascertain whether the outside world is indeed a dark forest. Just as those 10,000 civilizations that choose to attack, there must also be civilizations that blindly and rapidly expand and grow. Such civilizations are certainly not few. The fastest speed in the universe is the speed of light. If a civilization, after 10,000 years of observation, finds no other civilization within 100 light years, could it use those 100 years to expand to other star systems? Furthermore, if a supreme civilization exists in this universe, one that can no longer detect any civilization more advanced than itself, its only path to progress lies in breaking through the bounds of this universe to see what lies beyond. Would this require harnessing the energy of the entire cosmos? Would the dark forest then cease to be sustainable? This forest may not only contain hunters and prey, but also campers gathered around a bonfire, tigers vying for territory, eagles soaring above the canopy, mice that believe themselves undetected, and even civilizations like the Trisolarans forced to migrate due to the dire conditions of their own environment. In such a case, how could the dark forest endure? The Dark Forest Law evades these nuances, forcing civilizations into an extreme dichotomy: the hidden hunter and the discovered prey. Yet Yanxia could not outright refute the Dark Forest Law, for it is itself a conclusion derived through backward reasoning. As he observed, he had yet to see the universe teeming with life and noise. Instead, all he perceived was a profound silence. Yet in a journey spanning 4 light years, he had already encountered 2 advanced civilizations. Yanxia was not particularly concerned with the validity of the Dark Forest Law, for he had ample time to verify the true nature of the universe. The only thing he found ironic were those civilizations that truly adhered to the Dark Forest Law. By hiding themselves, they inevitably reduced their means of detecting the outside world. Thus, if a true disruptor existed under conditions of information asymmetry, such a civilization would have no choice but to await its doom. A civilization, if it is a hunter, will also experience hunger, fatigue, doubt, and impatience. They will yearn to know if their imagined enemy lurks behind the tree across the way. Thus, a hunter does not merely wait for prey, it may also take the initiative to strike. While a civilization strives to conceal itself, it must also remain vigilant, for there may be a pair of eyes in the forest constantly watching and observing them. Yanxia termed such a civilization an observer. It could be a supreme civilization, or it could be one of those 90,000 that could not resist investigating. Among those 90,000, 89,000 would find nothing, but 1,000 would discover the target civilization lurking and watching, saliva dripping, eyes fixed with predatory intent. And now Yin Xia was the observer of the civilization on Proxima Centauri b. Moreover, this observer had already begun preparing to savor this feast. Ella, is it ready? 50 years had passed since the investigation of the civilization on Proxima Centauri b. Throughout these 5 decades, Yin Xia had been tasking Ella with a single project: gathering materials from surrounding asteroids to construct something. It is complete, Yin Xia, Ella replied, displaying an image of the creation. It was a colossal structure before which the hope seemed minuscule. Standing 27300 meters tall with a diameter of 5439 meters, it was a massive cylindrical tower reminiscent of the Tower of Babel from Babylonian mythology. In fact, that was precisely what it was, the Tower of Babel. It represented the pinnacle of Ella's current technological prowess, its exterior forged from light civilization alloy integrating both light-based technology and matter-in-matter technology, and equipped with the largest magnetic shield. Extensively utilizing virtual reality and holographic projection technologies, it was a colossal challenge tower. To reach its topmost floor, one had to enter from the base and fight through 200 levels. Based on your observations, does the civilization on Proxima Centauri b possess the capability to breach its defenses? Ella was brimming with confidence. That civilization's energy sources are in fact similar to humanity's. They do not possess photon-level or quark-level particle weapons. The Tower of Babel has been infused with 90 of the antimatter we have accumulated over these years. Even if the entire arsenal of that civilization were to bombard it, it could hold out for 7 to 10 Earth days. Combined with the plan you devised, Yin Xia, it should be foolproof. In my simulations, the success rate is as high as 84.25. Yin Xia frowned. He felt this probability was still insufficient. Wait a while longer. Begin only when this probability reaches 90. The other plan can be set in motion now. Ella nodded vigorously, standing at attention and saluting Yin Xia. Aye, Captain. Since withdrawing from the virtual world, Ella had become much more lively, occasionally indulging in such inexplicable bouts of eccentricity. Yin Xia paid no heed, and instead repeatedly reviewed the information in his hands. The latest transmission reported that the robot had begun infiltrating the information network of the Proxima civilization, widely disseminating news of an invasion by a higher civilization and prophesying the arrival of a towering structure. Such information was inconspicuous within that civilization and had not attracted any particular attention. However, it had been widely propagated, reaching a vast number of Proxima Centauri b's inhabitants, which was precisely the effect he intended to achieve. This will be a conquest without smoke or gunpowder. Having spent so much time in the virtual world, Yin Xia had grown considerably. Especially during his tenure as a king there, he had gained a wealth of experience and insight. He learned how to wage war using information and psychology rather than brute force. Babel can also be referred to as Babylon. In ancient Babylonian language, both terms mean the gate of the. In the Bible, the Tower of Babel is a high tower built by humanity in hopes of reaching heaven. To thwart humanity's ambition, God caused them to speak different languages and use different scripts, preventing communication among them, leading to the emergence of numerous races and nations. This tower was only half completed and never finished. In the year 1980, Ella spent 70 years to create the complete Babel Tower. The tower soared towards Proxima Centauri, its shell resembling a sharp seashell adorned with spiral patterns, its outer surface like a silver mirror emanating blinding light from its false windows, sacred and majestic. As it approached within 30 astronomical units of Proxima Centauri, the civilization of that star had already detected this colossal object. Chaos ensued across the entire civilization. The foreign civilization they feared had indeed arrived. The leaders of the civilization began to meet, and within a few days devised a solution. Attack. Use every means possible to destroy that spaceship. Almost simultaneously, images of the spaceship rapidly spread within the civilization, and some beings were taken aback upon seeing its appearance. A powerful hunter does not hide. Instead, he views his surroundings as his hunting ground. One day, the object that the civilization fears will inevitably come, a high tower radiating a strong silvery light. It is unknown whether they carry goodwill or malice, but that tower suspended in the universe will not attack and cannot be destroyed. It opens its doors awaiting entry. At the top of the tower lies the civilization's treasure, which can be obtained through numerous trials. Is it a gift from the civilization or its poison? It awaits to be plucked. Whoever retrieves the treasure will become the messenger of a higher civilization, possessing supreme power and wielding unmatched might, even enabling the civilization to achieve a leap forward. They will become the hero of the civilization, immortalized. This information had been disseminated across the civilization's information network for decades. No one had ever paid attention. It was merely regarded as another prophecy fulfilling emotional satisfaction. But the real thing had now appeared before their eyes, and this information spread among the civilization at a speed 1,000-fold faster than before. Soon high-ranking officials came out to dispel the rumors. This is merely a coincidence. We have hundreds of millions of such prophecies, regardless of the circumstances. When encountering extraterrestrial civilizations, there will eventually be something similar. We have mobilized the entire civilization's weapons intending to destroy it. We cannot submit or retreat, otherwise we will face the extinction of our civilization. In the universe, there shall be no trace of us. We have evolved over billions of years and civilizations were born from tens of millions of years of accumulation. We should not meet such an end. At this moment, we must act like a spear piercing the throat of the enemy's scout, inducing hesitation and fear in them. The fervent declaration still echoed in their minds. Days later, a multitude of warships set out. The largest flagship was a perfect sphere reminiscent of the Heart of Gold from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but larger with a diameter of 1.0 meters, resembling a miniature planet. Behind it was a colossal thruster with a diameter of 2 kilometers, powered by dark matter kinetic energy. Dark matter was first proposed on Earth in 1922. In the universe, dark matter is believed to comprise 85% of the total matter, while the matter we can observe constitutes only 15%. It was hypothesized based on the anomalies observed in celestial motions that did not conform to Newton's law of universal gravitation, remaining merely theoretical until humanity's destruction in 2037. However, upon entering the universe, Ella had confirmed that dark matter indeed existed. It possessed mass, could not reach the speed of light, interacted weakly with light, and primarily participated in gravitational interactions without engaging in electromagnetic or strong interactions. Dark matter is exceedingly stable and difficult to detect. This substance fundamentally differs from the matter we can perceive, exhibiting inertia in the universe. Dark matter is a low-energy substance that only possesses weak interaction force, which is exceedingly weak even to the point of not producing significant reactions with quarks. Ella speculated that dark matter only reacts with strings. That remains a speculation because her technology had not yet advanced to the level of detecting strings. The substance closest to dark matter is the sterile neutrino, although compared to dark matter, sterile neutrinos are relatively stronger. Although dark matter is extremely low energy and only interacts gravitationally on a macroscopic scale, dark matter itself can release a vast amount of energy through decay and is widely present in the universe, making it a rich resource that can be generated through the fission and fusion of matter, thus qualifying it as an energy source. However, utilizing dark matter as energy is relatively challenging, even more so than antimatter. Only civilizations of extremely high levels can detect dark matter and utilize it as an energy source. The Proxima Centauri civilization is one such example. However, they are still in the early stages of utilizing dark matter. The ships of Proxima Centauri BS civilization are incredibly cumbersome. Their civilization developed without the need for long-distance travel, thus, it never evolved. No achievement can be derived solely from theory, as civilizations that have traveled the universe will inherently possess greater long-distance travel capabilities than those that have not. The spaceship activated and headed towards the tower. The massive spaceship traveled at a speed of only 1,584 kilometers, which naturally overshadowed the previous electromagnetic-powered Yenxia. But now Yenxia's fleet had already transitioned to a more advanced power system. After 21 days, the spaceship arrived within 10 astronomical units of the tower, which was the range within which the civilization's weapons could strike. The front part of the entire spherical spaceship began to separate like petals into 6 segments, which were not connected to the hull, but flew about 50 kilometers away from the spherical ship as independent bodies. Arranged up, down, left, and right, they formed a semicircle with a diameter of 110 kilometers. The central ship began to emit a bright light, and arcs of lightning at least 100 meters thick danced across the 6 components. These arcs of lightning formed a circle in space, appearing from a distance like a magic circle, releasing terrifying power. When the energy reached its peak, the captain of the ship shouted, "Launch!" There was no observable matter. Just as Yenxia's antimatter was shot at the eye of the 100 stars, the projectiles fired by the antimatter weapons were invisible to the opposing civilization, as they had no equipment to observe antimatter. Dark matter energy shot towards the Tower of Babel at 99.28 the speed of light. Our civilization is holy and inviolable. Any civilization that dares to enter our star system will be destroyed. The captain's chin tentacles waved, and the first 2 pairs of its 3 pairs of legs jumped up and slammed heavily on the ship's floor twice. The more than 300 soldiers aboard the ship also roared and made the same motions, seemingly a gesture of excitement akin to humans on Earth raising their fists above their heads. The distance of 10 astronomical units would take 84 minutes to cover. There were no screens within the spaceship, but their bodies had been modified so that information was directly transmitted to their neural centers, allowing them to visualize the information in their minds without needing to see with their eyes. They waited. After 168 minutes, they saw a terrifying dark matter bomb strike the Tower of Babel. The energy released from the explosion emitting a vast number of high-energy photons that fled outward, forming a massive luminous sphere with a diameter of 1,000 kilometers. In the next moment, this luminous sphere collapsed, rapidly condensing into an energy body the size of a molecule, which then exploded once more. This process continued for 6 times before signaling the true end of this assault, with the total energy released amounting to approximately 27 trillion tons of TNT equivalent. This is our victory. For the first time facing an attack from an extraterrestrial civilization, we have defended. The captain shouted again. To this civilization, the ship was akin to nuclear-powered aircraft carriers equipped with nuclear warheads from the 20th to 21st centuries. The dark matter energy cannon is the most powerful weapon of their civilization. In terms of equivalent yields, its power is 1700 times stronger than that of fission nuclear bombs, and although it still falls short of the 2222 times of matter-antimatter annihilation, it is not far off considering they have only mastered the most basic dark matter utilization technology. This indicates that the potential of high-energy dark matter energy may exceed that of matter-antimatter annihilation. The captain turned around, but the information received in its mind caused its excitement to freeze. After the blinding light comparable to staring directly at a star in the universe dissipated, the tower still stood tall and scathed, as if the explosion had never occurred. How is this possible? Like humans using a hydrogen bomb with an equivalent yield of 100 million tons to obliterate a city, the bomb exploded, yet the entire city remained untouched, with not even a speck of dust falling from the walls of its buildings. This scene was transmitted to Proxima B 168 minutes later. A profound silence enveloped the surroundings. Even though the stirring speeches from the high echelons of civilization still echoed in their minds, the world fell into a hushed stillness. At this moment, no life form contemplated that the speeches from the high echelons might merely be a recording. They shed their calmness and became seized by terror. Countless beings rushed to the areas where supplies were concentrated, beginning a frenzied scramble. Doomsday. This was a harbinger of impending apocalypse. Within their information networks, some of their kind began to spread fear. This did not even require Ellis intervention. Beings of advanced civilizations inherently possessed high intelligence, and such intelligence was bound to be highly complex. This complexity birthed a myriad of life forms with differing thoughts. Some would hide in fear, others sought to vent their terror, while some desired the comfort of others. Was there a hive-mind civilization akin to the Zerg from StarCraft? The answer was a probability of 0.047. The hive mind lacked one essential element: the rich and diverse imagination of individuals. Imagination is an exceedingly precious resource, especially among advanced civilizations. Why did Yenxia choose to conquer the 100-eyed tribe instead of destroying them? After all, he already had a highly intelligent being like Ella. Because the computational power Ella possessed was not infinite, she could calculate 1 trillion scenarios, while the billions of lives in the 100-eyed tribe could provide over 100 billion similar yet distinct scenarios. As long as there was no being, machine, or other entity possessing infinite computational power or intelligence, the imagination of biological entities remained an extraordinarily valuable resource. Civilizations with such resources were more likely to evolve into advanced civilizations compared to those without them. Yenxia's Babel Tower plan precisely exploited this point. Just as in mythology where God divided humanity with language, Yenxia was now employing the diverse thoughts of individuals to separate and control a civilization. In the midst of spreading terrifying information, many life forms simultaneously noticed that the account originally broadcasting the tower's arrival had published a new message. Almost instantaneously, the view count exceeded 100 million, growing at a rate of 10 million views per second. The tower is not a weapon to destroy civilizations, but a passport for civilizations. Civilizations harbor malice, yet they also possess goodwill. Goodwill is not a form of selflessness, but a kind of cooperation. Destruction is inferior to fusion. Of civilizations may plunder, using the imaginative resources of intelligent beings, for each being with high intelligence is a rare resource. By this standard, the universe may not be a dark forest, but rather a stable federation composed of numerous civilizations. Only civilizations that obtain the passport can offer their imagination and utilize the imaginations of other civilizations within the Federation. Lines of text filled with astounded cosmic speculations. No being could deny this, just as Yenxia could not deny the dark forest theory. It contained a powerful chain of logic. Unless one personally observed the true cosmic civilization, any rebuttal seemed pale in comparison to these theories. And the theories within this information required but one support: that Babel Tower did not launch an attack. A non-aggressive entity is naturally not a civilization filled with malice. The imagination resource theory would thus be elevated. This is a conspiracy of civilizations. A message appeared in the minds of all Proxima life forms. originating from the higher-ups. It was too coincidental that a prophecy perfectly predicted the tower's arrival and subsequently led all beings to accept this civilization. Even if this were merely a random prophecy, the higher-ups had to assert it. Because they could still not gauge the malice of the tower civilization as the passive party, they could not release goodwill first lest their civilization fall into a passive position. This was fatal. In a war, a single erroneous decision could lead to the collapse of an army. On the battlefield of civilizations, even more subtle mistakes could cause the decline of a civilization. Why not give it a try, right? Perhaps we could send a soldier to investigate. The lower echelons of civilization would disregard such risks, for all they could see was darkness. Both paths ahead were shrouded in fog, so they chose the safer one. These sentiments would spread, but the higher-ups had their own decisions. Precisely because of this, the higher-ups remained superior. They needed to make more rational rather than emotional judgments. A massive fleet began to mobilize. They were tense and prepared to face a great battle. All 700 warships came to a halt in the area where the spherical battleship had originally anchored, lined up in formation. The warships began to unreservedly unleash their munitions upon Babel Tower. Countless energy blasts collided with the magnetic shields of the tower. Antimatter was being consumed at a terrifying rate. On the other side, hidden behind a small asteroid, Yinxia observed the diminishing numbers on the screen. In 1 day 18.7 of the energy has been depleted, stronger than your initial prediction of firepower. Ella had previously estimated a week, which meant 14.28 daily to endure for a week, but now the Proxima civilization's firepower exceeded her prediction by 23.64. Not bad. After all, we cannot fully control the number of weapons and energy levels of this civilization. This is the expected margin of error. Ella's estimate was quite close, but it was still just an estimate. No one could guarantee whether this civilization would attack within 6 days. At that point, Babel Tower would exhaust its energy and rely on its shell to withstand the antimatter energy. Yinxia appeared remarkably calm. They cannot bombard for so many days. That would be a tremendous consumption of their resources. Internal voices would gradually take precedence. The higher-ups of this civilization are not machines, but living beings, and living beings can waver and hesitate. Yinxia was also prepared to retreat. If conquest were unfeasible, he would withdraw and seek other star systems. For him, this was not unacceptable. It merely meant losing over 300 years of time. He waited, his eyes never leaving the screen, the cabin silent and still. The second day, the third day, time passed slowly. Until the fourth day, finally the scale of firepower diminished by 10. A smile finally appeared on Yinxia. Dark matter is a substance that is extremely difficult to gather. The opposing civilization's reserves of dark matter may not be as ample as we imagined. Of course, internal conflicts may also have caused them to lower their flags. Regardless, I have achieved the first victory in this game. The second game has officially begun. A reduction of 10 could lead to even more savings. By the fifth day, the output of the Proxima Centauri civilization had already decreased to 74.58. The Tower of Babel still shone brightly like fireflies in the starry sky, though small they endured. The Proxima Centauri civilization had begun to feel numb. They had poured 20 of their civilization's energy, yet it still could not shake that towering structure. Even the higher echelons of civilization felt a suffocating pressure. That was merely a tower sent by the other side. If the enemy's fleet arrived, could they even destroy one of its ships with all their might? Chaos. The longer the tower remained, the more chaotic the surface became. We are doomed. Oh, we will anger a powerful hunter. Just as prey charges towards the hunter will undoubtedly raise their weapon and strike down upon the prey. What are those in the higher echelons doing? Do they want to push our civilization into the abyss? Destruction may just be a moment away. Flee. Flee the galaxy. Every day, hundreds of ships flew into outer space. Now the entire civilization's military focus was on that tower, and there was a chance to escape. On the first day, 241 ships took off, 27 of which broke through the atmosphere and escaped, while the rest were intercepted. More beings saw a glimmer of hope. On the second day, the number of ships launched reached 375, with 31 escaping. On the third day, 842 ships took off and 57 managed to flee. On the fourth day, the number soared to a new high of 1,354 ships, already showing signs that they could not be intercepted, with 482 having escaped. By the fifth day, the sight of thousands of ships flying into space infuriated the higher-ups of civilization. Those were cowards abandoning their civilization. Yet they were powerless. The instinct of living beings is to survive first, and then consider other matters. Civilization and nations serve as shelters for beings, providing them with the most fundamental thing: stability. If stability ceases to exist, then both civilization and nations will collapse. If we bombard, further more will escape. What can we do then? A bunch of idiots. They have no idea the lengths we go to preserve civilization. They only understand one thing: to flee. The only things we can do now are to continue attacking or to cease fire. Everyone choose one. All the high-ranking officials simultaneously visualized the scene in the starry sky. That tower. So majestic, so terrifying, so indomitable, so insurmountable. Stop. What if we halt for 1/10 of a revolution? Proxima B orbits Proxima Centauri in about 11 Earth days. That would consume even more of our energy. You should know how much we have exhausted over the past few days. If we stop now, we are barely able to maintain the economic stability of our civilization. Energy is wealth. 30 of energy equates to consuming 30 of a civilization's wealth. Only through inflation can the current economic system of civilization be stabilized, but they should know far too well. Generally speaking, a 5 fluctuation in energy can cause a massive economic upheaval. And now it was 20. They even avoided thinking about this issue. But why couldn't they cease fire? Because even if the economy collapsed directly, there would still be a day to rebuild, but if civilization was destroyed, it could not be reborn. They were caught in a dilemma. They could only repeatedly order more warships to cease fire and reduce firepower. By the end of the 5th day, their firepower had dwindled to just 34. 57. As the 6th day arrived, looking at the still intact tower, all the higher-ups felt utterly exhausted. It's over. Continuing this is meaningless. We must acknowledge the vast gap between advanced civilizations and ourselves. They had already consumed 23 of their energy. No longer could they endlessly feed that black hole. Perhaps we should send ships to explore the surface of that tower. After the ceasefire, they had no more choices. Know that maybe the civilization's conspiracy, we should observe for a long. No one knows whether that tower is a Pandora's box. As for that prophecy, the higher-ups shouldn't heed a prophecy. This concerns the fate of a civilization and cannot be taken lightly. But on the 2nd day, when the decision was to be made, they realized something was amiss. Our actions have already angered the advanced civilization. This may cause us to lose the opportunity to connect with them. We will be excluded from the Civilization Federation. As a civilization, not part of the Federation, energy weapons will cross thousands of light years to reach our star system, just like that star system nearby, over 2,000 years ago, struck by high-energy rays. Without warning, massive planets torn apart, and the entire star system plunged into a stellar proton storm for millions of years. Only by entering the tower and obtaining a passage permit from civilization do we have a chance to seek forgiveness. These guys, the higher-ups of civilization, almost had a stroke upon seeing this information. The most crucial part is that there are indeed beings who would believe it. Although their civilization has reached level 1. 8, their cultural spread should be quite high, yet this is clearly something beyond mere culture. Because that tower is without roots, indestructible. This is what all beings of the civilization see. Based on what they see, it is easy to draw subsequent conclusions. Precisely because it is easy to deduce, most beings will be convinced. We found the source of the prophecy. Images appeared in the minds of all the higher-ups of civilization. It was an old, dirty garbage processing robot, its head already blown apart, and within it they discovered a component different from the entire civilization, a circuit board. But this circuit board was already charred. A conspiracy. A thorough conspiracy. Spread this information. Instantly, all beings received this information in their minds. But it was already too late. The tower demonstrated with force that it came from a higher civilization. How could a higher civilization engage in such petty tactics? This was merely the rhetoric of the higher-ups. Even if an advanced civilization employed such petty tactics, so what? They were merely spreading information to avoid unnecessary conflict. Originally, more than half of the ships leaving the planet headed towards the tower, and more ships flew from the surface of the planet joining that fleet. A massive gloom hung over the heads of all the higher-ups of civilization. Since the opposing civilization employed such tactics, it indicated that the height of their civilization was not as unreachable as they had originally thought. The information conveyed might be true, but there was a greater probability it was false. They had discovered the truth, yet they could no longer stop it. Tens of thousands of ships filled with hundreds of thousands of beings headed towards the tower. They could order the fleet to intercept, but it would be futile. The universe is vast. After tens of thousands of ships dispersed, the only means the fleet could employ was force to stop them. If they destroyed those ships carrying civilians, they could hardly imagine what the civilians still on the planet would do. After all, this wasn't a decision made by a small minority, but by the majority. When the higher-ups of civilization did not align with the majority of the civilization's beings, they would no longer be the higher-ups. If they prevented entry to the tower, it would inevitably lead to internal strife, and unknown civilizations would seize the opportunity. If they allowed it, it would play right into the hands of the unknown civilization. Another piece of information arrived. We have already entered the tower. The first to enter were not the civilians, but our soldiers. This news left the higher-ups of civilization despondent. Soldiers possess stronger combat capabilities than civilians, but that does not mean soldiers can interpret information more deeply than civilians. There are several essential points among these messages. 1. Save the civilization. Every individual within the civilization wants to be a savior, They feel the threat just like the higher-ups do, but their decision-making options are limited, with entering the tower being one of them. 2. Control power. The civilization behind the tower is immensely powerful. All individuals wish to seize the power bestowed by the advanced civilization, allowing them to achieve class ascension. 3. The civilization is benign with no weapons. Entering the tower will not lead to death, and trying it bears no loss. This is a grand conspiracy across civilizations, using the guise of peace to ignite the survival instincts of civilizations and the greed of beings.